Hey everybody, welcome back to Backlog Banter. I'm your boy Abram, broadcasting live from the
Beep, beep,
Rapture. I'm
beep, 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 beep,
sorry.
beep, beep.
I'm sorry. I got to do something about my lighting. It's all screwed up, but we're here for a morning recording, so I can't help the fact that the sun is, it's in
No,
its
God.
peak stage at the moment.
Yeah. Unless we've
But
rescheduled the recording, but I think that's just
God forbid.
out of the realm of possibility at the moment.
I'm joined, as always, by Mr. Tucker Hazel, and
Yeah.
we're here today for a very, very special video. A
Yeah.
video that we expedited because Phil wanted it. That's not true,
No.
but he wanted it soon,
Yeah.
and he's getting it.
This is true.
This is our top 24 games of 2024. Now, last year we did our top 23 of 2023,
Yeah.
22 of 22,
Yeah.
and we're going to keep doing this forever.
We'll see what happens. it's,
Forever.
it's at the point now where it's not particularly unwieldy, and it actually
No,
feels like a quite comfortable and thorough amount of games. But there will
I
become a
agree.
point where that is just it's just not it's not fun anymore, frankly.
Top 62 of
Yeah, yeah.
2062.
But I mean, also, you got to factor in the fact that, we're not gonna be doing this in 30 years. There's no shot.
Maybe we'll reunite just for this video.
Yeah, sure. Well, we'll have to
You'll
put
be
aside our feuds that we ultimately will
exactly.
have.
Now, Tucker, I want to make a couple caveats, a couple stipulations, and a
Yeah.
couple exceptions and amendments before we start
Okay.
the
You know
list
what?
proper.
I'm down.
We do our lists here video game donkey style.
Yeah.
For people who don't know, this essentially means we
Spaghetti
are
and
talking
meatballs.
spaghetti meatballs, stromboli,
Yes.
get your popcorn. Um, we are talking about any games we played in 2024.
Yep.
Doesn't matter if they came out in 2024, it just matters that they were new to us in 2024. Now,
Exactly.
on my end, one caveat I have here is that there's some games that I tried playing in the past, didn't get into,
Yeah,
didn't finish,
that
whatever.
counts.
I have included them here
Yeah,
because
that
that's how
totally
good to the end.
counts.
I have also taken the liberty of rolling many games into one position at
Yeah,
times.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Um,
Honest to God, you do this basically every year. So like,
I do.
this is not news to me.
I do. So there's going to be there's one
God.
series that I played in its entirety.
Oh, I know exactly. Well, yeah, I know exactly what
And
it is. Yeah,
and it seemed more effective to talk about why that was a fun journey than
sure.
talk
Yeah,
about six of these games individually over the
correct. Yeah.
course of the list. Um, I also want to give a couple honorable mentions before we start.
Okay.
And then also we have some feedback from you guys, some of your favorite games that you played this
Yeah,
year, and we'll take a look at those before we get to the top five, both of our lists, which is just obviously significantly more important than whenever you had to say. So we thought
absolutely.
that would
God.
be the right order.
I mean, frankly, you're lucky. You get this much.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Uh, Tucker, do you want to give any honorable mentions yourself here?
Sure. Yeah, I could pick a couple. I mean, I played. Let's just get this list here. This is the games I played in 2024 ranked list.
Yeah,
190 games.
heavens to Betsy.
And so 24 is only a bit of that. But as is usual, I played a lot of games that I liked a lot this year. But
Yeah,
most of the games I played this year, I was like neutral on. I'm like, yeah, this is
sure,
fine. I'm not like I don't have particularly strong feelings about it. So it's not like there's a ton on there that I'm like jonesing to talk about that won't make this top 24. And frankly, actually looking at the top of this, I think each other games, all the games on here, I'm gonna be like, I really enjoyed, but I was very exploratory this year, and so there's a lot of
sure.
just I played Mr. Mosquito, and is Mr. Mosquito a particularly great game now? Actually, it's kind of annoying, but it's funny. And that's really
That's fair
the
enough.
realm in
That's
which
fair
I
enough.
operate with my video game playing. Like, well, does it have like comedic potential that I played it? Yes, and then that's
Yeah,
why I played it. But one shout out I want to give is to none of these made my top 24, but is to the
yeah,
Leisure Suit Larry series of games, of which I played 5 of this year. And or well, no, 4 because 5. There's not a Leisure Suit Larry 4, but I played 1, 2, 3, and 5. They skipped 4. It's a whole fucking thing. You can read about that online. But really enjoyed those games. Got me into the point and click Sierra adventure game genre. They're just so funny that even though they're like archaic in their design, I found that to be like a really refreshing change of pace, especially because I just haven't played that many comedy games before, and so
yeah.
I really got into those. I also I really liked Insane Aquarium Deluxe.
Sure.
which is an old PopCap game. I bought basically all the old PopCap games when they were like $1 each on Steam, and I tried each of them and like Peggle, Zuma, Bejeweled, like most of these things I'm not too hot on. Like they're fine time wasting games, but I found Insane Aquarium, which is a game where you like manage a fish tank. I found that like weirdly addicting. And then also I want to give a shout out to two games in particular that I feel like fit under a similar banner, which is
Sure.
AAA games that people are largely underwhelmed by that I think are surprisingly quality in one area,
Okay.
which is Hellblade 2 Senua's Saga and the Callisto Protocol. Two games I played all the way through this year that are very high production value, very stereotypically AAA, that people don't really talk about or give too much praise. I think
No.
actually really did like quite a bit both those games, but I think for me what really sells it, I think both those games have a really satisfying combat. Like they're heavy and they're weighty and the animations are really satisfying. And they're not particularly challenging on the difficulty that I played either of them, but like I enjoyed beating the
Yeah.
shit out of enemies with either a sword in Senua's case or my foot in the case of Jason Lee. No, that's an actor. What's the guy's name?
Oh,
Jacob
fuck.
Lee.
I'd never.
Jacob Lee. Okay, I was close.
Wow.
I was very close.
Well
But
done.
I praise both those games, and I also would praise Rise, Son of Rome in the same way.
Yeah, sure.
These three games kind of operate in the same sphere in my mind, where I'm like, these do deserve a little more praise than I think people are giving them.
That's fair enough. I want to give a couple shout outs here. I want to shout out Lucas Pope's Mars After Midnight,
Sure.
which doesn't crack my list, but I thought was extremely novel. My friend Chris Schilling made his list recently, and of his favorite games of the year, and shout out Mars After Midnight, and said the fact that that
You
game
would
gets
know someone who puts that on their top favorite games of the
yes.
list, yeah.
And he was saying that the fact that no major outlets are shutting out Mars After Midnight shows that we got a real problem. And so, at risk of BLB not seeming like a major outlet, I'm going to shut out Mars After Midnight because it is, in fact, very novel and very cool.
Yeah, but also he's got to be joking about that, right?
He is joking.
Okay.
But he's also a big Playdate believer.
Yeah, of course.
So he wants more people to pay attention to Playdate, and I think that more people should as well.
Yeah.
I also want to quickly shout out Click Holding
Oh yeah.
from Strange Scaffold.
Yeah.
Just barely misses my list. If you don't know Click Holding, you don't want to know Click Holding. You just want to feel Click Holding. It's like 40 minutes long. It's like $3 on Steam. I highly recommend you just go check it out.
Yeah. God, and you didn't even pay the $3. I did.
True.
Just shows what kind of,
Yeah, I
you're
would
just scamming
never.
the audience.
I would never.
By the way, there are no games on my list that I did not pay for. There's fucking plenty of them.
I also want to shout out just very briefly a couple games I replayed that I gained a new
Sure.
appreciation for. One of them was Halo 4, widely derided, but I found approaching it on its own terms on this replay. Its sort of very modern sensibilities in its level design and its storytelling actually make it quite special.
Sure.
Also want to shout out Star Wars Battlefront.
I'm planning
and
on that
the-
being my favorite Halo game, by the way. I haven't played it yet, but I'm planning on that being my
I
favorite.
really
one.
think it could
I've already
be.
made that
Genuine.
decision.
Genuinely, I think it would be.
Well, oh no, it's not going to crack Infinite. I love Infinite, but
That's fair. Battlefront, I really liked what Aspyr did with the Battlefront collection earlier
sure.
this year, which was re-release Battlefront. I don't really give a fuck about all the issues with it. I was never going to play online anyway, so it was really fun going back to that. And then I also want to give a quick shout out to Metroid Zero Mission, which came to Nintendo
Good
Switch
game.
Online,
Yeah.
and I beat in one sitting on a plane my third time through. I think that game is
Yeah.
outstanding. And then my favorite game that I played this year is a game that I've played since I was like 5 years old, and that's Super Monkey Ball Deluxe. I on this time I really came to appreciate how the game is so simple, and it really unlocked something in my brain. My love of these very simple games that still
Yeah.
have a lot of room for expression and have
Yeah.
really cute characters, and at the same time, this game
is put the shape block in the shape hole. Is that on your list this year?
barely misses. It barely misses. And this game is also really funny because the monkeys get really, really, really dizzy when they're in the ball, and that's something that the series has really lost sight of.
Interesting.
In the original game, Ai is like tumbling upside down. He can't control himself.
It's
And
gyroscopic in later games, I believe, right?
yeah, he's always running. He's always on his feet. I liked when he was getting like dizzy to the point of illness and like going "Wah!" in the ball. So
Yeah, buddy. I like that. too. Yeah.
The last one I'm going to shout out is F-Zero 99, which I
Sure.
played a lot of this year.
Mm.
They did a number of very cool updates to the game. They brought in some
Yeah, a lot of them.
Satellavy-inspired tracks.
Yeah.
Had a really cool winter update that I played a lot of when I was home for Christmas, and I think that that game just remains a real jewel in the suite of online Switch multiplayer games.
Yeah.
So I think those are all of my nominations. Do you
It's
want
a
to give
hidden
any?
gem.
It is. Do you want to give any unnominations?
Ooh, like just games I really didn't like.
What I meant to say was dishonorable mentions, but I said unnominations.
I like that
Um,
actually. I think that's better. You know, it gives us a little bit of our own sense of identity here. And so to clarify, you mean games I didn't like, right?
yeah.
Okay. Um, Sonic Colors. Sonic Colors, not because most of that game is particularly bad, but because
It's
there was one
fine.
boss fight that I was playing that was so poorly designed that I put down the game. And Abram can attest to this. He was watching me play. I probably played it for 35, 40 minutes. And I was just getting the collision didn't make any sense, and like it was really repetitive and like super long, and I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. Fuck you.
It was so funny. There was one point where you finally gave up and you literally collapsed in the ground.
So like that's definitely the kind of game that deserves an unnomination.
Yes.
That if it caused you to physically fall to your knees. Um, I also would like to give an unnomination to Flip Wars, which we played for about
We
30
did.
minutes this year, and I
Yeah.
paid like $12 for. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
I don't think it's ever on sale. I don't even think I remember they put that game out. But
Absolutely
Foot
not.
Wars is a very early digital only Switch game published by Nintendo that no one remembers exists, and for incredibly good reason. It is generic, it is bare bones, and it is not fun at all. I think it is easily the worst game of the Switch generation published by
Yeah.
Nintendo. I mean, I will make some jokes and major criticisms about games like everybody went to Switch and in my mind Endless Ocean Luminous and Detective
Yeah.
Pikachu Returns, but those games are way more functional, have their own ideas, are coherently produced to a certain degree, and Flip Wars is none of that. That
Yeah.
game really sucks. I mean, it was like pulling teeth to try to convince you to play it for even like 2 rounds. That was a tough one. That was a very
We were,
tough one.
we were drunk and we still didn't want to play Flip
That's
Wars.
true, yeah. And I kept being like, guys, let's just play a little Flip Wars, And you're like, no. Oh, and then finally, Babysitting Mama. You can see the Babysitting Mama baby back there. That's the worst game I played this year.
That's fair.
Not only because, well, okay, the idea that it came out is probably the best thing that happened to me this year, because I didn't know about it until I was gifted the Babysitting Mama baby there, which is a
Yeah.
little doll that you put the Wii remote in the back of. But it doesn't work. Like
No.
the game doesn't work. Yeah, that game really sucks.
I'm gonna give a couple dishonorable mentions. Sorry, unnominations
Yeah, on
here.
nominations. Whoa, oof.
I want, and these are gonna be very niche. I want to give an unnomination to the mode in Wii Party U that involves you holding the gamepad away from yourself and drawing esoteric shapes to open gates.
I forgot
Do you
that.
remember
Yeah.
this?
Oh no, you know what? Yeah, because it's part of the party island mode or
Yeah,
whatever.
you had
Yeah.
to hold the gamepad. So I got my Steam Deck here. You have to hold it like this,
Yeah.
and you have to draw shapes with your finger here
Yeah.
to match shapes on the TV to open gates, and we couldn't fucking do it.
Yeah. Well, it's
Couldn't
it's
do
it's
it.
literally a physical skill issue on our end.
Yeah,
Like it's
it was,
not impossible, but I think that's
yeah.
fair.
So I want to give an unnomination there. I want to give an unnomination to the Destiny 2 Lightfall expansion, which has a final boss so absurd that I simply couldn't beat it. And it's a notoriously awful
Yeah.
expansion. Um, that's a real shame. Yeah, Destiny 2 will appear in a different way on the proper
Sure.
list. And then the last unnomination I want to give, um, I think I want to give it to Princess Peach Showtime
Oh, sure. Yeah.
because that game really, really, really irritates me. Mostly because I'm a misogynist, but in a secondary capacity, it's because I just found the design of that game to be deeply un-Nintendo.
Unsatisfactory.
unsatisfactory, far removed from the philosophies that I
Yeah,
think unite Nintendo's best games, and I think a massive step down for Goodfeel,
yeah,
who has
I would agree
a
with that.
really wonderful track
Yeah,
record. And I want to give a neutral nomination to Nestor's Funky Bowling, which I played this year.
you did?
Yeah,
Why didn't you invite me? I
it's
mean,
on your 3DS right now. You can go play it right now.
it's on my 3DS.
Yeah,
Is it like
and
baked into the code somewhere that I'm not aware of?
no, your 3DS. Remember, I put the Virtual Boy emulator on your 3DS.
Oh, I forgot there was a Virtual Boy game. No, I'm
Yeah,
thinking of just like there's like an NES bowling game that I actually have like a physical copy in complete in box of. That's what I was thinking. I'm like, why the hell did you not play it? Yeah, I don't. I'm gonna be honest. I don't know almost anything about that game. So you're right. It literally is on my 3DS
yeah.
because you didn't
The
have
Mooch.
your 3DS at that point, I guess.
No, I still at my parents' house.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, one final thing.
Yeah.
Biggest disappointment. I shouldn't have been surprised that I was disappointed by.
Sure.
Forspoken is a game that I heard basically nothing good about, except for from
Yeah.
Bo, who like played through it, and he's like, "Eh, people give it too much hate." I played 3 hours of that game, and there is nothing that I like about that game. It looks bad. I think it has a bad color palette. I think the voice acting is bad. I
Yeah.
think the story is bad. I think the world design is bad. I think the combat is actually surprisingly bad. Sure, the animations are flashy, but it's not fun to control. Miss Frey Holland. It's slow as hell. Like, well, yeah, that game's bad. The reason I was excited for it to be like a hidden gem for me, where I'm like, nah,
Yeah.
people don't see its real value. No, no.
So we both ended our unnominations with some misogyny. Now let's get into our top 24 2024.
Yeah. Yep. All right, you go first.
Okay, I'm gonna go first.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
This guy's just always coming up with cool ideas.
and I'm gonna make a hot swap
Do
in the
whatever you
moment.
want. Do whatever you want. You didn't even have
Yeah,
to
I
say.
can
You
talk about
just
whatever I want.
yeah. No one knows what your
Uh,
list is.
well, my list is public, but I'm not gonna change it. Fuck it. Um, my bottom game, I'm gonna say my 24th favorite game of the year, is Link's Crossbow Training.
Oh, sure. Yeah, yeah. You know what? I respect that a lot. I
Because
respect that a
technically it was
lot.
25, but and the other one was Mario versus Donkey Kong remake. But it's a lot more interesting to talk about Link's
Oh,
Crossbow
absolutely.
Training.
It totally is.
Um, this game is deeply underrated, I feel,
Yeah.
by merit of it simply being a really, really good rail shooter with a lot of very particular to that early Wii era, like sound design and visual
Mm,
cues that make it this very odd but charming mix of Twilight Princess aesthetics and like general Wii vibes.
mm-hmm.
As a pack-in game, it's very, very cool, and even beyond that context, I had a lot of fun
Yeah.
switching off the zapper with you
Yeah.
and going through it. So
Yeah. And we got like surprisingly competitive
yeah,
about our high scores because we were playing it on, I believe, on my Wii U, and it saves. You can have multiple profiles within the game that like save your high scores and like
yeah,
you can compare them. And so I remember like you beating me in one of them, and then I never do this, but I like went back and tried to get a better score to try to show that I was in fact better than you, which is just
yes,
something that's generally known, but I needed it to be known in that specific context. And yeah, no,
of course.
I was very surprised by how much I enjoyed that game.
Hey, you've
Uh,
hit New Year's now,
yeah,
white boy.
this seems like a really good system.
Yeah, I
Go
think for this
go
year,
back
I'll
and
do
forth.
one, then you'll do one, then I'll
Oh,
do
shit,
one.
oh man, that's crazy. Number 24 for me is I Am Your Beast. This
Ooh,
game is sick. This game is so cool. There are a couple of small design choices about this game that I think are really stellar and lead to it having a great game feel that goes way beyond the relatively small production value that actually went into designing it. I think that Xavier Nelson Jr. is not only a creative genius in his direction and the variety of games that he makes, he's also a really goddamn good voice actor. Alphonse
yeah,
Harding is a really well voiced character that has a lot of personality, and these cutscenes in which the text is like flashing different colors, I think are really really clever. And then just in the way that the combat flows, there is this thing that I can't really describe, but it's this when you get a kill, the like reticle or the screen freezes for like just a frame and a half or something like that, and it
yeah,
gives like it's the same effect that the Smash Ultimate like final knockout thing where like you using like a Falcon Punch and like slows down. It's that, but on a micro level. And so you're going through and you're slaughtering guy after guy after guy. You get a headshot with a shotgun or whatever, and the screen just freezes just for a second, and it
Yeah.
makes it feel like you're like boom, it adds some like crazy punch to this. And music's great. Actually, music's fucking awesome. I think it has a great art style, perfectly paced. Other than this one element that I didn't like near the end of the game, but otherwise, what an awesome game! What a just an awesome game.
Yeah, I also love I'm Your Beast. It appears higher on my list, but I'll talk about it now. I
Wait, that no, don't talk about your thoughts when we get to that. It's gonna screw things up. The order's gonna get weird. We're gonna
Okay.
in like 5 games. We're gonna be like, wait, no, how do we do this?
Here's what I'll do then. Guardians of the Galaxy font. I'm Your Beast will
We'll
return.
return. Yeah. Number
Um,
23.
for me, that's Donkey Kong Jungle Beat,
Oh
which I
sure.
played all the way through this
Yeah.
year. I had it as a kid. I remember getting it from a thrift store and like barely playing it and instead liking Donkey Konga a lot more, which is
Hmm.
an awful opinion to hold because Jungle Beat is a much more interesting game than
Sure.
Konga. Directed by Yoshiaki Koizumi, the first
Yeah.
game from Nintendo EPD Tokyo. I think it
EAD,
really
but
is. Yes, my bad. Become EPD8. We are supposed to be the experts on this, so I
this
should
is
get
true.
killed
No,
saying that wrong.
absolutely, yeah.
This game obviously controlled with the DK bongos. It's really amazing how intuitive this game is and how fluidly you can move Donkey Kong around despite the fact you can literally go left, go right, and clap to jump. That's all
Yeah.
you can do. But the ways that with those simple inputs they build these levels that have a real sense of rhythm to them is should have been for people who are back playing it back in the day the first indication that EAD Tokyo was going to become the premier team
Yeah.
from Nintendo.
Yeah.
Um, when you combine that with just
It is kind
the
of
this
crazy in
yeah
retrospect that the team that delivered us like uh, but somewhere between 3 and 5 of like the best 3D platformers
yeah
of all time. Their
yeah
first game was a fucking Donkey Kong Bongo 2D platformer rhythm game.
it's hilarious and I love that about it
Yeah.
and I think it's extremely novel and the simple fun of smacking the bongos
Yeah.
makes up for
Oh, buddy.
a little bit of repetition and various things that
Yeah.
I think drag the game down a bit.
Sure.
But the concept is so strong, the flow is so strong, and the fun factor of
Yeah.
slapping that rubber, which I know you love to do,
Oh, yeah.
um,
Yeah.
just makes it for a very special entry in the GameCube's library. And I think you should
Sure.
check it out. I think you'd have a lot of fun with it.
I don't have the bongos anymore. You had both pairs, of course. They are yours, so you're allowed to keep them. But um, I don't have
How
any.
much a Deep K bongo costs?
Yeah, I do. I do. I look like a guy that should own that.
You do. A DK bongo. They are. You can get a testing and a working and tested pair on eBay right now for shipped for $33.
Oh, that's not crazy, especially for a old and relatively rare peripheral, and also a
Yeah,
relatively useless peripheral. I mean, there's probably, there's only like 6 games that they're even allowed to work on, but this is
yeah.
interesting enough that I may, I may, the juice might be worth the squeeze.
And not that I would know, but if you have bongos, a GameCube adapter, a Steam Deck, and a Steam Deck
Okay.
dock system,
Yeah.
not that I would know, but you can use all of those things in
I
conjunction
would
to
also have to
play.
get a GameCube controller adapter. I don't think I have one of those.
I got like a third party one. It works fine. It's cheap as hell.
Yeah.
But okay, your
Okay.
turn.
Next up, actually, I just want to quickly say, I'm very glad that's on your list. Like, in
Yes.
my mind, I do view you as a child, like a toddler, like you're like in preschool, and that the simple act of just like smacking something and it having like audio feedback, like that, like in my mind, that's what stimulates you most. And so I'm very glad that
Yeah.
this is actually reflected in your list there. My number 23 doesn't put me much better than a toddler, which is Loco 2. Because Loco Roco is just
Yeah.
kind of doofy and it's kind of funny, and there's like little guys who are squishy and they sing, and I think it's a lot of fun. And it is actually the first game that I put a lot of time into on my PlayStation Portal, which I purchased in 2024, and I played through Loco 2, and obviously that means that the PlayStation Portal worked enough for me to play through an entire video game while I was in a totally different state from my
Yeah.
PlayStation 5. So I was not only impressed by that, but I was very glad that I was able to play it on the Portal because I think Loco Roco is one of the perfect handheld games. The idea that you are tilting the world to control your character rather than controlling them directly, for me, works so much better in the obviously initially intended for PSP, but handheld form factor of like
Yeah.
if I want to, being able to just like actually tilt myself alongside it. I think is really special, and I love Loco Roco. And Loco Roco 2 is I mean, it came out like a year later. It's got all the same
Yeah.
graphics. Like this is the perfect asset reusing sequel, but it's a great continuation of it. Lots of fun level of variety, lots of fun little collectibles. There's just something so unique and special about the Loco Roco aesthetic and set of mechanics that have never been replicated and probably never will.
Yeah, absolutely. Loco Roco 1 is just outside of my top
Oh,
24
okay,
for the
yeah.
year.
Actually didn't realize you liked it that much. I don't think
Yeah.
even though it's one of my favorite games, I don't think we really talked about it. I think you just kind of played it.
Yeah, and I found it extremely novel on a level design,
Sure.
from a level design perspective, and that's really what sold me on it.
Yeah.
Because I think that the tipping the world concept is okay, but what
Sure.
really elevates the game for me is the way that every level is this almost just like joyous Rube Goldberg,
Mm.
natural,
Yeah.
whimsical play space. And so I had as much fun simply watching my
Yeah.
my floppy, goopy Loco Rocos tumble around these environments as I did playing the game. I
Yeah.
think it's extremely special.
And shout out to the Astrobot level that is
Is
a
why I
play on
Loco Roco.
Locobot. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I think I said Locrobot just now. I'm mixing things together. Two great games.
Yeah.
We'll be talking about Astrobot later. Spoilers. Number 22
Yes.
for Mr. Abram, Ernest Buhner.
2022. This is a divisive
You ever
one
think
here.
about the fact that your initials spell Abe?
Abe.
Abe.
Bowley.
Bowley. That doesn't make sense to
Um,
most anyone watching this.
divisive one here because I'm going to talk about now, I think your fifth least favorite game of all time, Kirby the Amazing Mirror.
Oh fuck! I hate that fucking game.
Yeah,
I should have mentioned that in my honorable mentions.
honorable mentions.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think we stumbled on it. Yeah, that's the
that's
one.
better than unnominations.
Honorable mention. This is
So
my this is just about babysitting mom on my list.
for me, I actually really loved Kirby the Amazing Mirror because it's sort of ability to craft this simple and contiguous Kirby world,
Mhm.
in which I could just sort of run around and explore, to me sort of was in this very prototypal sense a bit of the same feeling I got from Kirby in the Forgotten Land.
Okay.
Because
Yeah.
for as much as I love a game like Kirby Superstar, or any of the other Kirby platformers I love, they feel intentionally um, so uh, non-real.
Yeah.
They're these isolated rooms stitched together by star doors, and part of the fun is never knowing where you might end up when you walk through one. And Kirby the Amazing Mirror certainly has a component of that in a negative way because the sensible design of the map is not entirely there,
Yeah.
and how the rooms connect. But nonetheless, the idea of having this larger Kirby play space to walk around in, to me, was
Yeah.
extremely cool.
Sure.
And
I would love a actual Kirby Metroidvania, like a modern day, like genuinely you're just in a big, funky Kirby world. I would actually really enjoy that.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised if that's sort of the direction that a game like a sequel to Forgotten Land takes, maybe being a little
Mm,
bit more interconnected.
that'd be
Um,
cool.
but in the case of Amazing Mirror, even though you were hating it, I was loving you and I consulting the map we had up on the TV as we're
Yeah,
playing on
yeah,
our
yeah.
Switches and going
That
to
was fun.
different parts of the map, to complete our own
Yeah,
tasks and swapping notes and swapping spit and
yeah.
reconvening
Oh,
with
yeah,
the bosses.
yeah,
It was kind of the last major Kirby game I hadn't played,
yeah.
and I
Oh,
was
same.
very
I think it was the
happy.
last one. Period. I hadn't played.
I've still not played the
Oh, I never
Rainbow.
played. I also never played Mass Attack.
That's a really good one. I
Second
think you'd
video.
really like Mass Attack. But so yeah, it was great to check that off my Kirby list,
Yeah.
and I really enjoyed my time with it.
Excellent.
Thus, it being on my list.
Thus, finish each of our game discussions off as thus.
Yes.
Number 22 for me is Rise of the Tomb Raider, which I think is
Hell
just an awesome AAA adventure game. It is. Abram, lean in close. I got a secret for you. This game's ripping on Uncharted. It's almost like the modern reboot series for Tomb Raider is very inspired by the games that inspired. No. Well, obviously the lineage is Tomb Raider inspires Uncharted, inspires Tomb Raider. But
Yeah.
I think that's awesome, and I kind of like that art is cyclical and inspirations can go back and forth like this because Rise of the Tomb Raider is very much built in that linear action adventure Uncharted vein, which is a vein that I very much enjoy, and also a vein that I hadn't really explored in a while. The last Uncharted game I played was Golden Abyss in 2021 or something like that. So it had been a couple years, and I haven't played a home console Uncharted game since 2017 when I played Lost Legacy, which is also a great game. But being able to return to the Tomb Raider reboot trilogy, of which I'd played the 2013 Tomb Raider years and years and years ago, actually before I'd even played any Uncharted, and really enjoyed. With Rise of the Tomb Raider, which I think is just a really well crafted game. There's a lot. It I think balances the linear set piece spectacle story, high production value cinematic moments with a small but satisfying set of little open worlds, a little more exploration than something you'll get in Uncharted. And it has a great flow to it.
Yeah.
It has a lot better combat variety than the Uncharted games do because you can craft things and you can use bows and you can use guns and all sorts of stuff. And it's just cool. It's beautiful. I remember playing that game. I'm like, this could come out today and no one would bat an eye. And it's almost a decade-old game. So really, really thoroughly enjoyed Rise of the Tomb Raider. Shadow of the Tomb Raider is way down on my list. It's not as good, even close. It looks worse. Story's way worse.
Not even the same team.
It's not. Yeah, it's not developed by the same studio, which is apparent if you play them back to back. Which I actually finished Rise of the Tomb Raider, and later that day I started Shadow.
Yeah.
But Rise of the Tomb Raider is an exceptional game, and so very glad to have finally seen that through.
It's a trilogy that I really want to play in a more deliberate way. When I was in high school, I played Rise of the Tomb Raider and liked it a lot, but never finished it. Shadow holds a special place in my heart because it was like the first significant game I reviewed and like got early, and I liked it a lot. But yeah, I actually have the 2013 game, which I never played, downloaded on my Steam Deck right now, and I'm really excited to play that sometime soon.
You would like that
game. I also played, just as a sidebar, Tomb Raider Legends this year, which was really interesting in seeing how a lot of the DNA of a game like Uncharted and then these other Tomb Raider games is actually in that like awkward early mid 2000s Tomb Raider trilogy as well. Very interesting
games that people don't really talk about. Yeah.
No, and
I need to
always
play
on
myself.
Sale. The first one's also on PS Plus.
Abram.
Because it's
Abram.
Yeah, I know you own all of them.
Approximately 10 years ago, I paid $50 to purchase every single Tomb Raider game that had ever been made, including the fucking Temple of Osiris and all this shit. Yeah. It's all my Steam library, so...
Which is how I played it.
Yeah.
So shout out to your Steam library. Shout out to the new Steam family sharing system.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Outstanding. Well, but if people don't have it there...
It's crazy that they let that happen. I mean, we're talking about
the best one.
PlayStation's system working if you don't have a lot of friends, and Nintendo's system being certainly very odd but workaroundable, and then Steam just like, look, you can just have like 6 people and you have everyone has everyone's games. Like, this is the opposite of what Netflix is doing, opposite of what Disney Plus is doing. It's there. That's a props to Valve, you know.
Yeah.
Props
to Valve in this regard. Also, Valve, please get all the Nazism off of your Steam forums and things.
I guess I don't spend enough time on Steam forums to encounter that.
A very big report that came out recently that Steven alerted me to about the amount of real-world governing bodies and advocacy groups shining a light on the rampant amount of Nazi imagery and discussion that happens on Steam.
I'm
which
not a fan
is
of that.
yeah, yeah.
Just to
It
make it clear.
irks me. It irks
Yeah.
me to hear that.
I'm
Um,
not
it is a
happy
real
about it.
problem. My next game is I Am Your Beast. So now
Oh,
it's my
nice.
turn to talk
Okay.
about I Am Your Beast.
I'm your beast has returned.
A big theme of our conversations around games this year has been sustainability in game
Sure.
design and about advocating for better development practices.
Yeah.
And nobody exemplifies that better than Strange Scaffold. And I think no game that I've played this year exemplifies this maybe better than I Am Your Beast.
Sure.
Because what's great about I Am Your Beast is a small scope and it does the most with
Yeah.
the least. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that that deserves a lot of credit. The way that the story is told is not particularly flashy, but nonetheless there is an air of style to it, despite being all text and voiceover.
Mm-hmm.
I think Xalavier Nelson had a very pointed political message to share in the narrative of Iron Beast and got it across clearly. And I think he had, as you were describing earlier, a very clear desire and understanding of the importance of flow and
Yeah.
used that and used small design choices like that freeze as you get a kill to enrapture you in this sense of motion that makes you overlook the fact that the environments, the enemies are to various degrees cut and paste.
Yeah. No,
But none of
totally.
that matters because the game is paced perfectly. It knows what to do with the tools it has, and it knows how to. And I don't mean this in any way as anything other than a real praise of the game. Distract you
Yeah.
with this feeling of empowerment and motion.
Yeah.
So I think it is a truly, truly outstanding game, and I hope that it. I don't know if it's on consoles yet. I
No,
think it's on
not yet.
PS5.
No.
Oh, I'm thinking of El Paso.
El Paso
That's the one that
elsewhere
came to
got
PS5.
its PS5 port like a year after its release. I would not be surprised if there's a
I would
porting
hope.
company working on
Yeah,
Beast for everything. Um,
I would certainly hope so because I hope more people can check
yeah.
this out.
Ooh,
It's an outstanding.
I really hope that game shows up in like an indie world because
Yeah,
that's a
yeah.
perfect like. I mean, it's not gonna be like an opener or a closer, but like get some eyes on that. Maybe shadow drop it. That'd be
Yeah.
awesome.
It's a banger.
It's really
It's a
really
really,
cool.
really exceptional
I
game.
remember playing that first level, and when the beat kicks in, and I start to get a sense of the combo mechanic that gets you a score in that game, which is really cleverly designed, and the voice acting comes in and stuff. I was literally, this is not a joke, laying on the floor behind the couch. You guys were watching something. I don't know what it was. I was laying on the floor behind the couch in my Steam Deck, and I was kicking my legs like a high school girl. Like this is so cool.
Yeah.
Number 21 for me is Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown. Godspeed
Epic.
to those motherfuckers at Ubisoft Montpellier who made a game very clearly inspired by Metroid Dread, which is sick as hell. Prince of Persia: Lost Crown is fluid. It is wide in its scope. It has phenomenal production value, lots of great optional side content, a really unique pacing to the way in which it doles out its Metroidvania upgrades. You don't get the double dash or like the air jump or the air dash until like 2/3 of the way through the game, but you don't even
Yeah.
think about that because you're using all these crazy fucking abilities that totally reframe the way that you are doing your platforming. The platforming and the combat are really well integrated into each other. There's this sense of like Devil May Cry style like melee combat to the way you're like kicking guys up in the air, like slashing them a bunch and slamming them down. It is a really special game that understands a sense of style, understands a sense of place. I think the environments are really interesting. Really awesome big scope boss fights that are just sick as hell. It's a really good game. I mean, and everyone who's played it knows that. But this is one that's going to just gain a following. As it's a very popular genre, the Metroidvania genre. We don't get a lot of AAA ones like this, but in the 2020s lineage of this genre, Metroid Dread and Prince of Persia: Lost Crown, I think, are in my mind like neck and neck. Similar
Yeah.
amounts of quality, similar interesting ideas that make them their own. Really, like I knew it was going to be good from like the first trailer we saw, and you and I actually played like a demo at PAX West in 23. But I love this game. It's really really cool.
Yeah, I do as well. It's gonna reappear on my list.
Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown will return.
Yay.
Yippee!
My next game is Ape Escape.
Yes, yes. I turned you into a little Sony sicko this year. You're
You
playing
did.
the Locorocos. You're playing your Ape Escapes, which are like the prototypical little wacky fucker games from Sony.
They are.
And they're just goofy and they're unique and they're fun.
Absolutely, and I think that a lot of those adjectives sort of encapsulate why I think Ape Escape um, charmed me as much as it did.
Yeah,
I just love how silly the Pippo monkeys are. I love all of
too.
the little mischief they're getting up to, all the little activities they're participating in.
Yeah.
Obviously,
Not
Ape
enough
Escape,
mischief in our games.
no.
No.
Ape Escape, obviously a massive influence on Astrobot, and I think a clear way you can draw that comparison is
Yeah.
just in the
There's that
ways that
level.
these. Yeah, yeah, that's the best comparison you can draw. But this overarching sense of life in these little toy box environments, brought to it by these wacky little guys who are just embattled for their lives, or fishing, or just like screwing around, or manipulating gadgets.
Yeah.
I think that spirit is part of what makes Ape Escape really special. And the controls make it special as well.
Yeah.
Obviously, this was the first and one of very, 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 very few PS1 games to require the DualShock.
Yeah.
In most games, it was simply optional after Ape Escape.
Mm-hmm.
But Ape Escape said, well, this second stick, we don't yet know what it will do. Here's what we think
Yeah.
it should do.
Yeah.
And the answer is swinging a net or
Yeah.
using a little Pippo radar. And the amount of fun and novelty in Ape Escape, I think, is similar to a game like Mario 64, but in some ways, to me, more interesting, because
I
what
would
Mario
agree.
64 did was say, here's the blueprint, and then nobody questioned them. They're like, yeah, that is the
Yeah.
blueprint.
Mm-hmm.
Ape Escape said, here's the blueprint, and everybody says, no, Mario 64 is the blueprint.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
indeed, I think that this proposition about how you play games, or how you manipulate a controller, is quite compelling. And so there's a similar sensibility to me between my love of Ape Escape and my love of Donkey Kong Jungle Beat.
Sure.
I like challenging the way you actually control a game.
Yeah.
So I really had a great time with Ape Escape. I think it gets a little bit annoying by the end.
Yeah. Totally.
But also I was playing on PS5, so I could rewind at
True.
my heart's desire.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
really good game.
It's awesome. I love Ape Escape. Next 20, number 20 for me is Botany Manor. Botany
Hey,
Manor.
this was in my Xbox year in review because I played it
Yeah.
and I loved it.
Yeah, I think at that point of the year, I didn't have Game Pass, but you did, and so I just played it on your account because I don't give a shit. Botany Manor is a puzzle game in which you are visiting an old English countryside manor that is full of little puzzles and like a story that you have to figure out. And so it's very inspired by something like Gone Home in the way that it paces and reveals its story points. But for me, what was really special about it is that it has a distinct sense of variety. It is very much about the natural world and the ways in which we categorize things and learn science. It takes place, I think, in like the early 1900s or something like that. So you get I think, a really compelling aesthetic that's very underutilized in video games, which is like the hand-drawn sketches of like flowers and like animal diagrams and things, and like old equipment for astronomy and stuff. That really gives it a unique sense of place. It's got this nice pastel color palette that I think is really inviting. And all the puzzles are just very, very different. You know, you're using different parts of the environment. You're running around as you like learn something. You like run back to another puzzle, like, oh, that's actually what this means. And it's like a 4 or 5 hour game, but it's tightly crafted, totally unique. It really sucked me in. I think it's a super, super special game that doesn't get enough love.
Let's go from a game I've not played and thus have nothing to say about it to a game you've not played and will likely not have anything to say about.
I
That's
can
my
find
game.
something to say.
Sakura Samurai Art of the
Oh
Sword.
no, actually, you know what? I'm completely honest. I don't even know what that game looks like, so I can't. In most situations, I would be able to say something, but
Yeah, but I knew. Sakura Samurai Art of the Sword is a game that you can't play anymore, audience member.
Huh?
Well, you
Get
can
fucked.
if you have a modded 3DS.
Yes.
But this is a eShop exclusive from 2011, I believe. Um,
Jesus.
yeah, it
That's
was a
really old.
very, very, very early, one of the first of the generation eShop games, and I really found it interesting because it is so compact. It is a very, very small game in runtime and in amount of things. And I mean that in every way. I mean in terms of environments, I mean in terms of enemies, I mean in terms of gameplay mechanics, I mean in terms of everything. It's this
That's a
little
lot of
game where you're,
stuff.
yeah, where you're walking around this pocket-sized feudal Japanese countryside and you're getting into these very simple, almost punch-out like sword fights.
Hmm.
And in between them, you're going to these little towns that have this almost skip limited stable of characters who are shopkeeps, who improve your swords, who give you little challenges, little mini games you can play. And the whole thing just really impressed me in a way actually quite similar to I'm Your Beast, in
Sure.
terms of saying, look, we're not going to take a lot of time with this game. We're not going to put a lot of people on it. And that's not going to be a criticism. It's simply going to be an illustration of the fact that a small group of people had a really cool
Yeah.
idea and they wanted to see it through. And you're going to see it through yourself in about an afternoon or less. So between the satis I was gonna say satisfactory gameplay, but that sounds like it's just satisfactory. The satisfaction I got from mastering
Yeah.
the simple
The
punch out style
satisfying
gameplay.
gameplay.
Yes.
That's probably what you're
And
looking for.
the charm of the characters. I'm easily charmed.
Yeah.
I just found this to be a really interesting
Snake looking
um
ass.
yes, really interesting addition to the 3DS's roster.
Yeah.
And if people can find a way to play it, I think they should. I
Yeah.
think it's quite
It also
special.
has a pocket-sized Wikipedia article. But there's
Yeah.
no fucking information about this game on the internet. Next up, number 19 is Infinite Craft, the first and only browser game I've ever had in my top games of the year.
Yeah.
But Infinite Craft is special. We exist in a world in which using AI in any capacity is a buzzword that doesn't mean anything and is usually bad. But the way in which one Mr. Neil Agarwal made Infinite Craft, a game that in real time uses algorithms to generate infinite things that you can craft, is really special. Wahunga. Infinite Craft is a very, at surface level, a very basic element combination game. You put together your air and your earth, and you get dust. You put together your earth and your water, and you get mud. You know, we can conceptualize this. We're human beings, but the way in which Infinite Craft plays with its algorithms and also kind of in my mind a sense of humor. Though I don't really know how that works. And please, Neil, respond to my emails. I want to interview you for DevDive. In which it quickly starts to devolve. You get all the
Sure.
basic stuff, and then you start getting into like countries and people and fictional characters, and then you start combining the fictional characters and you make like specific episodes of television shows and
Yeah.
then you combine those and it makes up an episode of a television show featuring two characters that have never met canonically, and it starts to fractal and spiral, and it like has punchlines in the way that you're creating things. And I don't think I've ever laughed harder at a game than in Infinite Craft, sitting on the floor for hours with my brother just trying different things, and you come up with what was the thing that really it was something like Boba Fett mixed with a T-Rex mixed with Darth Vader mixed with like all this ridiculous nonsense, and like a golden pig that's like pooping, like it's like what the hell is going on? But
Yeah.
it's very social. It's so clever. It's free in your browser. And to me it is a perfect example of how video games can be just anything. This is
Yeah.
one guy's idea that delivered for free on the browser. And there's nothing like it. It's based on things like Alchemy, Zed's Alchemy, and Doodle God, and games that I loved as a child. But it really takes that concept and runs with it. I think it's secretly one of the most clever games of the year, one of the most clever usage of
Yeah.
algorithms and game design. Um, and it also, God, it makes for the funniest YouTube videos. Holy shit, it makes for the
Yeah.
funniest YouTube videos. And I think, unfortunately, because it's a browser game, it's going to be something that people pretty quickly forget about. But I will be singing its praises for a long time to come.
Yeah, I mean, I really like this sort of class of browser games emerging that don't look like what we traditionally consider games, but nonetheless are and speak to a wide audience. I'm thinking about this. I'm thinking about Wordle. I'm thinking about
Yeah.
from the team that made Gubbins. They really recently put out a new game called Real Bird, Fake Bird, and I just think it's really cool what people are doing with browser.
Yeah. I'm gonna I'm
Um,
gonna
my-
I'm gonna try to find what this
yeah.
one really funny thing that we made was. I know I texted it to my brother at one point, so I'm just like search our messages and try to find. But continue. Talk about a game probably.
Okay. My next
Is that
game.
what you're gonna do? I just want to make sure.
Yeah, I think I
Okay.
will.
All right.
I think I will. Well, actually, hold on. I'm gonna search our group chat quickly. I'm gonna help you here. I think if I type in infinite craft into, no, nothing came up. Never mind. Our group chat. Okay, I can't help you. I'm gonna instead talk about my next game, and that is Kill Knight.
Oh
This is a
sure.
this is a late and new addition to my list. Kill Knight, the way I described it in my backlog review, it sits somewhere between Sorath's games. For people who don't know,
Sorry.
that is Sorath makes these really psychedelic and freaky first-person shooters called Devil Daggers and Hyper Demon. And it sits somewhere between those games and Treasures games, your Sin and Punishments, um, your 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 Ikarugas and your Radiant Silver Guns. It is this top-down kind of PS1 aesthetic, um, gothic but also super abstract twin stick shooter, and it's just extremely difficult to where you have to really pour yourself into the game. And I think these sorts of games that give you a very finite tool set, give you a big reflex oriented challenge, and simply turn you loose with a peculiar and interesting, some way enigmatic aesthetic really speak to me. It's why I
Hmm.
like again the games on the side of it, Sorath's games and Treasures games. For a couple days when I got it on the Steam sale around Christmas, I was just totally engrossed in trying to find the right combination of gear and forcing my way through these real tests of endurance that it throws at you. And I found myself having to lower the difficulty by the end, which actually makes me quite excited because it puts me in a position similar to a lot of character action games I like, or a lot of other just general action games I like, where, okay, I beat it on the baby mode. Now I've got this opportunity to come back when I feel ready and walk up a step
Yeah.
and not just beat the first half of the game on a solid difficulty, but the second half too. I think Kill Knight is really visually captivating. I think it's quite it's mechanically tuned so well, and I think it's really gone under the radar. Um, I
Sure.
bought it really on the strength of its key art, so I think
Yeah.
people should
Well,
give it a look.
to that game's potential strength and potential for growth, it was given away for free on the Epic Game Store a couple
Yeah,
days ago, and so I'm sure, like, quite literally 15, that 20,000, 30,000 people have just added to their libraries, and whether they'll
yeah,
get to it or not is frankly none of my business. But it's a game that is actually surprisingly accessible now,
yeah.
because of that. So I
Very cool.
I
Highly
I
recommend it.
never even looked it up. I don't really know what it looks like. But I hope I like it if I play it.
I hope you hate it.
No, I don't. No, no. What the hell, man? What's going on? Um, Abram,
Yeah,
every year I find myself a puzzle game that I love.
yeah,
And of course, there's a couple puzzle games coming up that are a little bit non-traditional. But I find myself more and more surprised as the years go by simple puzzle games that I find addicting, that start to subvert my expectations of me not really being into like high score arcadey type games just in general. And as I mentioned earlier, with Insane Aquarium Deluxe, I got into PopCaps games this year and was giving them a try. And for the most part, most of the iconic games, as I mentioned earlier, Peggle, Zuma, and Bejeweled being the main ones, I thought were fine, but I didn't get super into them. But then I discovered Bejeweled Twist, which is a game I didn't know existed until a couple months ago, which is Bejeweled, which is a match 3 column style falling block puzzle game. Believe it or not, or like Candy Crush, you match 3 of a color and they disappear, and if you do more, then you get a little effect, whatever. But Bejeweled Twist, you can't just slide the pieces. You have to rotate a group of 4 of them 90 degrees. And that simple change, I think, completely changes the flow of things. It makes your pattern recognition of the ways in which there will be like 2 of 1 here, and then there'll be 1 like a block away from it. But if you rotate that 90 degrees, boom, suddenly it's 3, and then it disappears. And you start like visualizing the patterns in totally different ways, which is something that for especially falling block puzzle games, I usually have a hard time doing. Obviously, something like Tetris is not concerned about the patterns necessarily, but I've always found it difficult for like Pokemon Troze or Candy Crush or things like that to like make good combos. So you're setting up things and then they fall, and then you get all the colors and noise and stuff. I've never really understood how to like set those up, but Bejeweled Twist I think operates in such a different way, where I'm really just concerned about this like minute pattern recognition that I was just absolutely addicted to it. And you can ask my friends. I know you could hypothetically ask my friends in the Austin area about me and Bejeweled Twist over the Thanksgiving break, because that's when I played it. And I was bringing my Steam Deck with me everywhere. I went to multiple parties at multiple people's houses, and I would say hello. But really, I was there to go and sit in the corner and play Bejeweled Twist on my Steam Deck. I was wearing pajama pants, and they have big pockets, so I slip my Steam Deck in my giant pajama pants pocket and take it out and then just play Bejeweled Twist in the corner. Yeah, let's go. I think it's awesome. And I really can't describe why. I never expect these games to hit me.
Yeah.
Happened with, I don't know, Dr. Mario World and Yoshi a few years ago. Like just like these random like falling block matching puzzle games that I think are like really addicting. And now I've got a new one of those, and it's sitting on my Steam Deck whenever I damn well please.
Yeah, I'm gonna play this. I think I'd really like it.
Yeah, it's very unique.
My next game is Sonic Dream Team.
Oh, yes. This is on my list last year. I think I'd only played it like 5 or 6 days before we made our list last year, and I was like, Abram, you will like this game. Play it. And thus
I did. I'm not an Apple device owner, so I couldn't get to it right away. And I really thought it was going to be on Switch by now. As a sidebar, I played this at the very, very beginning of the year when I stole your laptop at gunpoint and played it. This game is really,
sorry, I've
really,
repressed
really...
that memory. It was just like trauma.
The game is so good, and
it's awesome.
It really deserves to be on more platforms because it truly is like the best 3D Sonic game. I mean, I don't know how else to put it. It's this really great mix of the speed, the phenomenon of speed and flow you get from the boost style games. Even the best ones like Generations, I think, really falter when you're not boosting down those corridor sections. This game simply doesn't, because it pulls the camera way back. It makes the environments much more toy box like instead of linear.
They're very readable.
They're very readable, and the result is this great amalgam between the sense of the pace of play you expect from Sonic and the platforming, the more focused and deliberate platforming that Sonic was trying to explore in 3D with the adventure games.
Yeah.
I think it's just really outstanding, and I hope that if it doesn't get ported, people really do take the time to just take a free trial Apple Arcade. You
Yeah.
can sync up any controller
Mm-hmm.
to any Apple device you have. You must have one or know somebody like
Yes.
I did that has one. Give it a shot. I really think that even if you're skeptical about Sonic,
Mm-hmm.
rightfully so,
Yeah.
this is just truly a great 3D platformer.
It is. Yeah. And it's a great 3D platformer that, to me, understands why 3D platformers are great and also understands the appeal of Sonic. I think that
Yeah.
most 3D Sonic games, for me, though I haven't played all of them, admittedly, try to match Sonic's sense of speed and crazy aesthetic and level design with 3D platforming, and it almost never works, whether that's the physics being janky or the levels being hard to read or having too many ideas to where nothing becomes polished. 3D Sonic games have failed again and again and again to try to do this. But this is like I mean, it really is like the Kirby and the Forgotten Land like transition 2D to 3D, where it's like obviously it's not actually a transition from 2D to 3D. There've been plenty of 3D Sonic games before Dream Team, but it feels like the perfect continuation of the appeal of 2D Sonic into 3D, which the Sonic team has tried so many times, and I think almost always consistently failed.
And this is not Sonic Team.
No, it's
For people
not.
who don't know,
Sega
it's
Hardlight.
Sega. Yeah.
Yeah. What I really hope is that, of course, I hope gets ported, but I think that, I hope that Sega believes enough in Hardlight for them to make a sequel to this game that's just on everything, because it is very much a mobile game, and the aesthetic is good, but things are low poly, like it's structured like a mobile game in terms of like the levels that you're visiting and stuff. If there was just like a home console adventure Sonic game with these physics and these mechanics and this kind of structure, we're off to the fucking races, baby.
Yeah, and the only problem with this game is it got a fucking stupid story. The story in
Yeah, of
Sonic should
course.
always be Eggman has taken the widget. Go get the widget from Eggman. Knack the Weasel can show up, but that's about as much narrative as I want.
Mm, mm, mm.
But you're Sonic Frontiers man, so you're a man of the frontier, and that game is more
I'm a
of a narrative.
frontiersman. That's what we call ourselves in the community. Number 17 for me, Riders Republic, baby.
Whoa.
And this is what I love about video games, is that
Yeah.
there's unexpected gems hiding in the rough, just out there for people to discover. It's like panning for gold. God, the video game industry is fucking magical. I will go from playing, okay, X entry in important series, Nintendo game, Capcom game, Sony game, creative indie game. And then there's these other AAA companies that get a lot of guff for ballooning their budgets and for basing things on like repeating things over and over again and milking things dry. And Ubisoft is certainly one of those that I have my fair share of criticisms of.
You love things getting milked dry.
But Riders Republic is in reality a sequel to Steep, which is which I just wanted to just mention because people might remember
Yeah.
Steep as an open world snowboarding game that I tried and thought was okay. Like, yeah, you can do skiing in it. But Riders Republic is it's an open world party racing game that I think deserves so much more credit than it's gotten. I think there are so many small design decisions in here that consistently blew me away for a game that I just downloaded on a whim on PS
Yeah.
Plus, because it's the kind of game that feels like it would be on PS Plus, and it is, and you should go play it. It's a mountain biking game, a skiing game, a paragliding game, a rocket jetpack game, all of these different things that sort of fit in this like extreme sports area. But the great part is it's all of those at once. And by which I mean you have the freedom to do any one of them at any moment that you please. And so you're going around this beautifully rendered open world that has like interesting natural topography and stuff, and there's like this culture of like, extreme sports, and like every character is there for like be the best at extreme sports they can. It's totally goofy, but you can swap between biking and gliding and skiing whenever you want. And there's all you like jump on like a snowblower and stuff. Like they have some goofy ones as well. Uh, and the physics are great. But there are these races in which F-Zero 99 style, you are thrown into 50 people with physics jockeying around on a race course, swapping between bikes and skis and jetpacks and all this stuff, and you're colliding into each other and you're bouncing everywhere, and all these models are like working in real time, and it creates a sense of frenzied spectacle and kineticism that I think is unmatched. And I don't play a lot of racing games, but there's this like party aspect to it that also combines with, if you want to, just explore the open world, just have fun with the physics. Tanner was playing, he just sit there for like 3 hours trying to go as high as he can and then just drop and try to land a bike, but then your character like ragdoll and you're like bounce off a cliff and like skid down a hill. It's the best of an open world thing where you can just like explore and like find little hidden stuff, and the best of a racing game. And also it does something really interesting with save data. It's every time that you play something, it records your data, uploads it to a cloud, and your character, even when you're not playing, the actions that you did will show up in everyone else's world. And so no matter where you go, there are people everywhere doing their own things. And so it creates this like sense of party camaraderie that brings a totally unique energy to it. I think it's like a surprisingly special game with unique design decisions and a totally fresh tone that I was totally blown away by.
Yeah, I mean, so I didn't play it, but I watched you guys play it, and that to me is high praise as well, because I, I don't always get sort of sucked into watching somebody play a
Yeah.
game, but I really did with this one because it's a sort of game that you're talking about all these great design choices, you're talking about all these interesting innovations. Fuck all of that.
Yeah.
This is a great game for doing silly acts in.
Totally.
And to me, that's what really interests me about it. Being like, okay, Tanner, go up to that. I want you to go up to that mountain over there. It looks really high to me. I want you to go up there, and then I want you to get on a bicycle. And I
Yeah.
want you to go down on a bicycle, and then chuckle, and then he ragdolls. And he's like, okay, now we're gonna go up into the sky. And then I want you to go from your jetpack back to the bicycle. And I want to ride your bicycle through the sky and then crash in the ground and try to land on a mountain.
Yeah.
Like, it's a sort of game that to me very earnestly is trading on virality
Sure.
in a way that doesn't feel sort of hokey. It instead feels like
Oh,
it really
sure.
understands the intrinsic fun that these sorts of games can offer. So
Yeah.
yeah. I didn't play it, but I was also very impressed by Riders
Yeah.
Republic this year. I have another Ubisoft game here, and this is my time to talk about Prince of Persia: The Lost
Excellent.
Crown. It really is a shame that Ubisoft is such a bad company in terms of its corporate culture and
Yeah.
business decisions, because they make some really great
They
games.
do. Yeah.
Um, The Lost Crown to me succeeds by letting you adopt a fun way to move
Mm.
around.
I was
Something
hoping
that I
you'd
really
say
like.
like an orphan, maybe. Like I was hoping for a little bit of
Hey,
positive social.
you adopted an orphan. You put it in your fucking unmentionables list. Yeah, you adopted an orphan child.
Oh,
You instead of
babysitting mama. Jesus
enjoying the
Christ.
time you had to take care of it, you put it in your closet.
Worst game I played.
Instead, you hated it. Um, I love the way that when you get late in the game of Prince of Persia, you move around the world by running into a double jump, into a dash, into swinging off a pole, and you beautifully animated as you flip backwards and you dash again. Like
Yeah.
that to me is so awesome.
Hmm.
The game just feels great to play, and it's
You'll go
really
like 50 seconds in this game without touching the ground because you just got so many
yeah.
moves you can do.
Yeah, and at the same time, it never feels too much. It never
No.
feels like you're patting
Mm-mm.
your head, rubbing your stomach. Your hands just sort of naturally move from one into the next and the next, and that sequence is just excellent. And it makes fast traveling around the map not that interesting of an option,
Sure.
because why could I fast travel when I could instead flip and bounce and dip and hop around?
Dip,
And so
duck, duck, dive, and dodge.
when you combine that with all the various praises you heaped on the world design and the combat earlier, you just have a game that I agree with you. I depending on the day when I wake up, I say I like this or Metroid Dread more.
Sure.
And that's just not something I thought I would ever
Yeah.
say, because I hold Metroid in such a high esteem and separate from most of its genre, which I largely don't
Sure.
enjoy that
Yeah,
much.
except for Kirby
Um,
Amazing Mirror.
and so, yeah, of course. But Prince of Persia really is outstanding, and it's such a shame we're not
Yeah.
getting another one. It's such a shame.
Yeah, totally. Because I mean, it's such a strong foundation, and the craziest part is that team had never made a game like that before. Like,
Yeah.
it just comes out of nowhere, and like Metroid Dread, amazing game, based very strongly off the bones that Mercury's team learned from making Samus Returns and from the
Yeah.
3DS Castlevania games and things. And the team that made Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown were like making like Rabbids games like 3 years ago for like mobile, and then they made this.
It actually is interesting though because you're totally right. However, at the same time, I think about like the musical levels of Rayman
Of course,
Legends
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and like the way that they know how to create the sense of tempo and
Yeah.
gameplay. Obviously, those stages are very literal because they're set to music,
Hmm.
but I think you can
Sure.
feel that heart in that design. But the point you're making is so true because it's on a fundamental structural level is so different.
Yeah.
They're such a good team. Um, and now I guess they're remaking a Rayman game, which could be
It could
cool,
be
but it
cool,
just
yeah.
feels like they should be doing something bigger than
You know
that.
what? You know what game they should remake? Rayman 2. I heard that that's never been re-released before.
Is that the one that was like Rayman 3D and all this shit?
Yeah, there's like 6 different remakes on all sorts of different
That's
platforms of
crazy.
Rayman 2.
I've never played a Rayman game that wasn't one of the new
Yeah, yeah,
ones.
me neither. Yeah.
I would like to. I think I would like it.
Yeah.
It's just a 3D platformer.
The first one's not. The first one's a 2D platformer.
That's true.
Yeah.
He also has a big hog. We know that from the marketing.
Oh,
Big
yeah. Oh,
feature.
yeah, 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 yeah. Rayman
Big
also great
features
character
on
design on
Rayman.
that guy.
Yeah.
I love when
Big
he collects
features.
lums.
Remember when Artsy Omni leaked them for Smash?
Dude,
Leaked them for Smash? That was
big day
crazy.
in my life. Big day in my life.
Yeah.
Next up, in a similar vein to I Am Your Beast, Neon White is a high score chasing game about
Yeah.
momentum and style and flow that as every god is that I do not believe in is my witness.
Yeah.
Made me sweat like a motherfucker unlike anything else this year.
You sent me a gross picture of your hands after playing that game. You're like, look at all this sweat on these hands.
Neon White is so much about this sense of speed and momentum and mastery of level design that it balances the perfect fine edge of
Yeah.
being like, God damn it, God damn it, God damn it. But it also just invents its own sense of mechanics that it's based on this card system in which you get a card and the card is pistol or shotgun or rifle or whatever, and they're corresponding to weapons. But you can also then, instead of shooting them, if you don't want to, you can discard them and they'll have a secondary effect on your gameplay. And so you discard the pistol one and you jump. You discard the shotgun one and you throw a grenade or whatever it is. And there's like this very interesting sense of player agency in the way you
Yeah.
want to get through these levels as quick as you fucking can. And let me tell you, when you want like an S rank or whatever, it is tight. Like you need to be really good at
Yeah.
this. But it incentivizes it by having incredibly fast load times. The music doesn't stop between runs. It's a very good soundtrack. And having a great sense of flow. You're like, I know where I messed up, and I can get back there very quickly. All the levels are very diverse. I just think it's awesome, and it's a game that really challenged me to get better, which is not something that very many games succeed at doing. 'Cause I'm very resistant to that usually, but I think Neon White is sick as hell. And
Yeah.
you want to talk about a guy that can apparently do anything, Mr. Ben Esposito, who made Donut County and then Neon White. What are you doing? How? What the fuck are you talking about?
I love Donut County.
That's a great game.
I loved what I played of Neon White before God intervened.
Oh, but
You
that was the game you were playing when the power went out for like fucking 9 hours. That was crazy.
Yeah, Tucker got me to play Neon White. I sat down with it. I'd been resistant to it mostly because I knew I would hate the anime
Yeah,
stuff,
yeah,
and I
yeah, yeah.
did.
Yeah.
But you can literally there's literally a button to fast forward through all the anime
Yeah.
stuff. And so I was really digging the actual gameplay, and I was echoing all of the praises you just gave. But then the power went out like 3 times in a row, and I'm like, what the fuck is going on? And then it went out for like a day and a half.
Yeah.
That's an exaggeration, but it was out for a long time.
It was. In the
never went
entire
back.
town too. Remember, we were like trying to go to like multiple
Yeah,
restaurants because like we couldn't cook anything, and they were all closed because the power was out. And then we
we
found
found one
Subway.
Subway.
We
They
found
were
Subway, and
open.
there are like 20
Eat
people in
fresh.
there.
Eat fresh.
That's a crazy day in my life.
Yeah,
we,
but
we were like tooling around a ghost town. Like the grocery stores and the gas stations were closed because like everything was that was fucking
it
crazy.
was extremely weird,
What a
and
wild day.
I honestly think that just like the how peculiar that day became,
Yeah,
just like pushed Neon White out of my mind. I didn't stop for any reason other than literally the power went
yeah,
out.
yeah.
I really would like to get back to it because I was loving it.
Totally.
My next game, I think, is the sorry. This game and one other game you hate. I think there's only a total of 3 games on my list that you hate. This next
What
one
if I have a
is
secret hatred for some of them?
I don't think you do, but maybe.
Continue.
One's teetering. 2 are teetering. This game is Endless Ocean Luminous.
Oh, I don't hate that game.
No,
I just think I think you're doofy.
that's fair enough. You always think I am though.
Ah, excellent point.
That- yeah, as a rule, that's how you feel about a lot of my taste, and that's good because it means I'm
Keeps
doing
you
something right.
honest.
Keeps me, I guess so.
I don't fucking know.
Endless Ocean Luminous is a very low budget game, and I accept that and I understand that. And when I look at the way the game is talked about, the way it was scored, the way it has been swiftly forgotten, I blame nobody. I don't look at Endless Ocean Luminous and say, "You're wrong." You know, no, I'm not just
There you
pointing at you.
go.
I'm pointing.
I'm
I'm
wrong.
not. No. I point and say I'm built different
Sure.
and maybe worse. But the fact of the matter is, Endless Ocean Luminous to me scratches a lot of itches that don't amount to anything in the mind of anybody else other than me. I love that Endless Ocean Luminous is by merit of being largely empty and devoid of structure, honest to the original concept of what Endless Ocean 1 and We was going to be. I am moved a lot by the revival of this IP on principle.
Yeah, so am I.
I have a very strong personal connection to the ocean. Growing up in Maine, the coast is very important to me.
Yeah.
Being
It's
back,
really a Ponyo situation,
yes,
which I'm not sure I was
I'm
supposed to reveal on camera.
I've actually never seen Ponyo. John
You
always
know what
wants
it's
to watch
about though,
Ponyo.
right?
No, I don't.
There's like a fish that turns into a human girl,
I didn't know that.
and she like teaches a little boy how to like have adventures or something. But what I'm insinuating is that you're not human.
Oh, fair enough. I see. Yeah, I didn't want that revealed. It's a Lucas situation.
Lu-
'Cause remember
Oh,
he's
from
like a
Bayonetta?
no from Luca
Oh, holy fuck, Luca. Oh, dude.
fucking reactionary
No,
Disney and Pixar. Luca. He's like a fish or
I thought
something.
obviously about Bayonetta. Continue.
Um,
That's a good movie.
what was I even saying? I love the ocean.
Yes.
I want to learn how to scuba dive in real life. Endless Ocean 1 is a very important game to me. It's one of the early games I really took a deep dive into and no pun intended and wrote about when I was at Ninty Fresh. It's a special series to me. I make no apologies or excuses for a lot of I think the obvious issues of the game, but moreover I look at it and see it for what it is, which is a low budget return of a series that means a lot to me sentimentally and also provides me with a very unique and calming sense of play.
Yeah.
And so I still jump into Endless Ocean, not for a long period of time, but sometimes if I just need like a 20-minute reprieve, I'll go in and I'll photograph some fish. And yeah, I think I think if you surveyed 500,000 people.
No, not enough people. Not enough people played the game.
Well, what I'm saying is, if you surveyed 500,000 people that made a list of their favorite games this year, I'm and maybe 2 other people
Yeah.
have this on their
Yeah,
list.
yeah. Definitely true. Yeah. Number 15 for me. This is only tangentially related, but you want a good ocean game? Abzu. God fucking damn.
Oh, I love Abzu.
Abzu's
I love
so
Abzu.
good. Austin Wintory's score.
Yeah, I
That
can't wait for
fish
Sword in the
animations.
sand, singing in the rain.
Abzu has been a
For the
game that
general.
I have loved for actually almost a decade at this point. It came out in 2016. I got
Wait,
it
is
around
Abzu
launch.
your game here?
No, hold on. Fucking let me
Oh, okay.
talk.
Okay.
Jesus.
Oh, I
Uh,
see. I see. You're
I'm
winding up.
building
Sorry.
towards something.
Sorry.
I'm, uh, I'm winding up. um, Abzu games I've loved for a long time. I would put on that soundtrack all the time while I was studying. Um, it I also am someone who has an affinity for marine life. I love aquariums; it's one of my favorite things to go to. And Giant Squid, I think, knocked it out of the park with their first game.
Yeah.
But they made a second game. I don't know if people know this. They made a second game called
Oh.
The Pathless. That was a launch game for PS5 that, for whatever reason, I didn't play. Could not tell you why. I remember watching that first real show, like, oh, this is kind of interesting. Oh, this is very different for them. But The Pathless, again, it came out 4 years ago at this point, five now that we're in 2025, and I just never played it. And then I was sitting there and thinking about studios whose work I really appreciate, and that whose work it would be very easy for me to like have a holistic view of. And I'm like, well, I love Giant Squid. I'm really looking forward to Sword in the Sea. I should actually play The Pathless. And so I bought a copy of it. I put it in, and over the course of 2 or 3 days, I platinumed that fucker within an inch of its life. The Pathless, you quote me on that. The Pathless is another game. We've actually been talking a lot of these today. A game about flow. A game about, in the same way that I found a lot of enjoyment out of Sonic Frontiers, exploring an environment and just having my sense of momentum carry me around it. The Pathless combines its combat and traversal in such an interesting way, in that you must continually aim your arrows and shoot at these sigils floating in the environment. And as your arrow hits a sigil, you get this boost of speed, and so you're gliding over these beautifully rendered environments with towering trees and really interesting art direction that uses deep greens and reds and browns in this totally unique way, and you're just moving through it, and it's such a zen experience that's about this like repetition of knocking an arrow, letting it fly, and like the feedback in the dual sense and the sound design is so crisp that every time you do this, you're just like boom, boom. Like it feels like you're knocking a jet, like you're like revving an engine. It's so satisfying. It has great collectibles. It has really interesting boss fights with like stealth and stuff, and another great score from them. I just think it's a really, really remarkable game, and also very different from Abzu because it's an action game. It has great frame rate. You're moving around really quickly. Exact opposite of Abzu. And so I think they've knocked it out of the park twice. I really, really love The Pathless, and I strongly recommend that people check it out.
I really would like to check it out as well.
Yeah.
I don't know if it'll quite be as much my thing as your thing, but I also love Absu. And I'm very, very excited for Sword in the Sea. No,
Sword of the Sea.
Sword of the Sea.
Yeah, but it's
one of
it's
those
a sand game, so sea is like it's a
like
pun
Dune
almost.
Sea, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one of those titles that's really like evocative, but also you could put like those words in any order.
Yeah. I'm sure there are 30 paintings called Sword of the Sea.
Probably.
Like a poem.
You know, there are
poem?
no
Sorry.
there are no poems called Excitebots Trick Racing.
Yes! Excitebots. Let's go.
Is my next game. So this is an example game I played a long time ago when I was a kid, but never really beat it. Because when I was a kid, I didn't have much money. But what I did have was a subscription to GameFly, which is how I played a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
But it meant that I didn't beat all kinds of stuff. I'd play something for a couple days, and then I wanted a new game that they had Nintendo Power, so I'd have to send the old one back, wait for the next one to come in. Excitebots was part of that rotation, but now that I'm adult and could buy this game for $15 off eBay,
very cheap.
I was really excited to dive in to what is one of the most joyous and peculiar racing games ever, because it's a racing game, but it's also a dart throwing game and a pie throwing game and a soccer ball kicking game, and it's a lot of things. It's a game where you play as a car that's a frog that turns into a frog that walks, that flips off of bars and runs and goes around the world. It's so eclectic. And I think that eclectic sensibility is what sets it even further apart from Mario Kart. Because I
Sure.
kind of think that when you're looking at Nintendo racing games, Mario Kart's it's at the nexus of that universe. And then you're like judging the distance from Mario Kart. The
Mm-hmm.
distance from Mario Kart to F-Zero is pretty significant, but and then you're trying to triangulate where's
Yeah.
Wave Race go, where's 1080 go, where's City Kong Racing go. But as you're making that solar system, you come to realize that Excitebots, it's actually in a different Milky Way galaxy over here. And that's what makes it great. The sense of speed,
Bruh.
the pat your head, rub your stomach phenomenon of those challenges. Because to be clear, if you're not playing Excitebots, you're doing the pie throwing while you're racing.
Yes.
The fact that they're like, okay, take a break here, but don't take a break. Throw this pie, but don't fall off the track. There's all of this real layered sense of goofiness, and it works to create an experience that is totally unlike any other racing
Yeah.
game. It's most similar to Excite Truck because they use basically the same tracks,
Yeah.
but you should just play Excitebots.
Absolutely should. Would you rather
I
be a fucking Ford, or would you
Ford
rather
that
be whatever the hell is happening in
a
Psychbots?
Ford that can't play baseball while it's driving along this fucking side of the Great Wall of China,
Boom.
or a turtle car that can. It's that simple,
Aha.
folks.
the
Yeah,
the
I
the
love
uh,
Excitebot.
meme of the guy like
Yeah,
happy face sad face. Yeah, great game. And I was thinking about that game and the way I love its sense of speed and like also kind of floatiness. It really has a
yeah,
unique sense of weight to it. And I would really love an F-Zero game because people would play it then. An F-Zero game that uses that sense of physics. And of course, it's not too far off. Like, sometimes you hit a
it's
boost.
fast. Yeah,
Yeah, it's very fast, but sometimes you'll hit a boost in an F-Zero game like X or GX or something, and you're going off a big cliff or whatever. But they do it differently over there. They do it differently at Monster Games. They do it differently. I really would love the exact same thing, just reskinned to F-Zero, because then people would play it. But obviously, then you wouldn't. I don't know. Would you want F-Zero? Like, would you want playing like basketball and baseball and bowling and shit? I don't know. But I think it's a really special game. Also
yeah,
runs great on Wii, which is crazy to
yeah,
say.
yeah.
Next
It
up
does.
for me is Foul Damage, the very first game I had a chance to talk to a developer about on my show Dev Dive, which I started in 2024 and then did 12 of them, which is a lot. I
To
could
be
have
clear, Tucker, you started Dev Dive in
September.
October, September
Yeah, late
2024.
September. Yeah. Yes. So I'm a sicko. I'm a fucko. But Foul Damage is really cool. It's a pixel art 2D platformer about fall damage and avoiding it, and jump arcs that would cause fall damage, and then trying to work your way around the level. It is reverse engineering the 2D platformer
Yeah,
in a, kind of in the way that something like Downwell was, where it's more about falling. Um, I think it's got a great sense of physics. I think it's got a totally unique sense of level design. It's perfectly paced in my mind.
yeah.
I was getting my speed run times down to about an hour. And it was made by one person. And it's really remarkable for that. It certainly feels like a small scope game. This isn't one where I was like, holy shit, how did one person make this? But when you realize that and you're like, this is just a polished, focused vision from May Gardens, who I'm glad to have.
Yeah.
I think a surprisingly significant part in like the whatever amount of success your game has had. I thought it was really special. I get, and I also am very lucky that for all these games and developers I've talked to, I've liked all the games that I've had to play for that show. But this is the one that, well, no, it's not the highest one on my list, but Foul Damage is great. I'm the only one with this on my list at the end of the year, but it's just one that, because we live in a very saturated indie market, this game's never going to get the time of day for most people. But it's like $6. It's super unique, and I really wish it. I hope my praise of it through my interview and also here implores a couple people to go give it a try.
And you've already sold you. We know for a fact that you have sold copies of the game,
Yeah.
which is cool. I mean, I played it on your recommendation. I didn't beat all of it, but I thought what was interesting about it and what I think is its strongest selling point is it literally is a game where the platforming is the puzzle.
Yeah.
Because often
Yeah.
puzzle platformers are about some sort of like larger macro puzzle you're solving by jumping around.
Pushing a
Here,
block or whatever.
yeah, here jumping is a challenge, and I think that that's extremely clever.
Yep.
And it's as we're saying for I'm Your Beast, but amplified tenfold because I'm Your Beast is already quite a successful game. This is a sort of game that really should get a nice little indie world
Oh,
shadow
totally.
drop.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I don't know if they're
I-
gonna do Switch ports. I don't know. Peglin did quite a lot later, so maybe, but maybe
yeah.
not as well.
Let's talk about a game that got a Switch port here. That's Splatoon 3 Side Order.
No, it didn't get a Switch port. What? What? A port implies the existence of a previous different system version. I would say.
Ported from a dev kit.
I guess so. I guess it was made on a PC of some kind.
Yeah.
So it really is a PC game.
Splatoon 3 Side Order is
What the heck? You can't put DLC on here.
Splatoon 3 Side Order shouldn't have even been a DLC. It should have just been a little game.
Like a spin-off
And
almost? That's the whole thing. We don't need to
Splatoon 3
litigate
Side
that.
Order shouldn't have been a DLC. It should have always been part of the main game. What it is essentially is a roguelike Splatoon game where you're climbing this big tower in Alterna and fighting various, very in classic Splatoon fashion, very kooky enemies. But these ones are they're very clean. They are very like austere. I
Oh.
think what moves me a lot about this
Very
game is that
demure.
they're very demure. They're very mindful creatures. Um, what
Christ.
moves me about this is not only the idea of this very replayable single player Splatoon experience, but also the way that it stands as a continued testament to the fact that, in my view, Splatoon has maybe the greatest art direction of any series Nintendo's ever put out. Because the way that this art team is able to take the tenets of Splatoon and recontextualize them in this very clean white and gray world, cat moment, Jesse moment, to me is extremely, extremely special and proves that no matter how much this team iterates, they are always going to have ways to present Splatoon's world in a new way. And on a gameplay level, it's a continued testament to the fact that I think this group within EPD5 is putting out single player experiences that are on par with anything else that any other group within EPD is doing.
And they don't get enough
Between
praise for it.
Absolutely not. Between the Splatoon 3 base campaign and Side Order, I really think you're looking at two of the most fun single player titles you can enjoy on Switch. Obviously, the multiplayer is the focus of Splatoon. It's always going to be what dominates conversation. But I really think that that team has carved out such a strength in this type of design as well. So,
Yeah.
highly recommend people check out Side Order because it also has a real narrative focus to it. So it's not just like a roguelite that exists solely for the gameplay.
Sure.
There's a lot of world building there. There's a very good narrative. There's in traditional Splatoon campaign fashion, a wonderful, big, well scripted climactic battle and dance number and
Cool.
everything. It really is quite great.
There's a dance. Wait, actually, there's a dance number.
It's a whole performance.
Well, I guess I mean they usually do that.
Yeah.
Frankly, one of the only things I remember from the Splatoon 2 campaign is like the Calamari Incantation like final boss fight against DJ Octavia, which I thought was awesome. But otherwise, Splatoon 2's single player was not particularly remarkable.
No, it's just more of the first.
Yeah.
It's more of the first.
Well, that game came out 2 years later, so this makes sense.
Yes.
Next up, a game with style, and flash, and pomp, and boobs.
Style savvy?
Oh, sorry. I'm talking about breasts. Wait, what? Sorry. Stellar Blade is my number 13 game of the year. A game that has been situated in an awkward position. But
Yes.
Stellar Blade as a video game in its own right, coming from folks over at Shift Up in Korea, is to me what everyone else sees in Nier and Bayonetta. To serious games that are widely beloved, that I've tried, that I've thought are okay.
Yeah.
But Stellar Blade, I was consistently blown away by. Not only is it one of the like highest fidelity games I've ever seen and runs at a totally rock solid frame rate, but it balances the flashy combat of Devil May Cry or Bayonetta with the more methodical enemy design and boss design of something like Bloodborne or Elden Ring that I really enjoy. And in that super satisfying combat, and I thought really like fun to explore, little open worlds and stuff,
Yeah.
and lots of sense of variety in location. It certainly wears its influences on its sleeve, but I think it carves out its own identity. And regardless of that, it's just really well made, and it's art directed
Yeah.
very well, and it has a really good soundtrack. I just think it's awesome, and I think it's unfortunate that the wrong people like this game. And luckily, I'm the right person, and my friend Joe is the right person, and I believe Bo
Yeah.
played it, and he's the right person. There is a really well designed video game here that is it's like 15 20 hours long. You know, it's not like massive. There's a lot of good optional side content and optional bosses and stuff. It's just a great game. And when I'm going up to the final boss area, that's like this like a space station turned into like an angel thing that's like, and I'm like flying around in space and shit, and I'm like, this is the cool shit that people like out of all these like Devil May Cry and Bayonetta and stuff. But the character has big boobs, and so people only think about that. Like, what about all the other awesome stuff in this game? God.
Yeah, I think that's why it's important that ethical perverts like yourself have it on their list.
Yeah. Ooh,
No, but
great Discord username.
That,
Tucker, ethical pervert Hazel.
But on a serious note, I agree with you. I think it's becoming increasingly clear, while there was some doubt that the people at Shift Up really are not interested in engaging with or capitulating to this sort of anti-woke sentiment attached to the game. I think they just like big hooters, and who can blame them?
Yeah.
I really do want to give this game a try at some point.
Yeah. That'll be on PS Plus in like a year.
Yeah, I think I played my fill of action games this year, so
Sure.
I think
That's we'll get to.
but I really think
Wait, no, it's 2025. You haven't even played an action game yet this year. Duh.
I played Astral Chain, and so
Oh, did you?
Because it's only the fourth. There's actually a higher percentage of the year spent playing action games than there was in 2024 at this point.
Wow.
But I want to play Stellar Blade.
Yeah, it's cool.
My next game is Dragon's Dogma 2. Now, there was really no reason for me to buy Dragon's Dogma 2.
No.
There was Dragon's Dogma 1 existed
on your Switch. You could have gone and played it.
I played it a very little bit,
did you?
But
Okay.
mostly my exposure to Dragon's Dogma came from a really good friend of mine, Martin, who I lived with in college, who loved that game and played it constantly. And I remember watching it and thinking it was interesting, but there was something about Dragon's Dogma 2 in particular, and I think that something was my exponentially increasing love of Capcom in their modern era.
Mm-hmm.
It got me interested to check this game out, even though it's geared a lot more in the direction of RPG fans that I don't often find myself aligning with in taste.
Mm-hmm.
But in playing Dragon's Dogma, I found an experience that was able to recapture some of what I found special on a personal level about Breath of the Wild.
Sure.
Obviously, they're really not similar games in a lot of mechanical or meaningful ways, but in Breath of the Wild and in Dragon's Dogma, I found myself really appreciating environments. And I found myself playing Dragon's Dogma and really thinking it was novel the way that it felt like the world wasn't designed to be played. It was designed to exist in a natural way. And if that river was too big, if that mountain was too tall, that's my fucking problem. there was this really interesting ambivalent nature to a lot of the design decisions in Dragon's Dogma that I found very compelling. And when I paired that with a character build that allowed me to play it like an action game, where I have this grappling hook that I'm throwing at enemies to yank them into me, and I'm doing this big move where I spin up in the air with these blades and smash back down and do these fast, heavy strikes. Um, I really found a way to play that spoke to a lot of things I love. Um, and so I was really taken by Dragon's Dogma. I don't play a lot of open world games. I certainly don't play a lot of these more high fantasy titles, but this one really captivated me, and it's just another feather in modern Capcom's cap, in my opinion.
Yeah,
And yeah, a really interesting game, I think, for me to fall in love with as much as I did.
sure. Yeah, and it's also something that, while I don't love that game, I'm very glad that it's a part of modern Capcom's lineup.
Yeah,
Dragon's Dogma, I believe that first game sold decently well, but it's not a game that people had widely a lot of
yeah,
reverence for. But I think revisiting it in the modern context of a Capcom that people have a lot more confidence in
yeah,
allowed Dragon's Dogma 2, which by all metrics is actually a very similar game to the first
yes.
Dragon's Dogma, a chance to find an audience that would resonate with it a little bit more deeply, and it certainly did. People really, really enjoyed that game, and it certainly had a lot of its own interesting ideas with the pawns and like sharing them online and stuff like that, and the physics with the larger enemies. Yeah, there's a lot of cool little design decisions there.
And weird ones too, which is part of what interested me. Like the last
Yeah,
thing I'll say, and this is a spoiler, but I'm not going to
who
talk about
gives
it
a
in a
fuck?
way that gives away much.
Who gives a turkey?
The game, when you launch it, just says Dragon's Dogma until you get an ending, and then it says Dragon's Dogma 2. And then there's a whole nother game, much shorter, but a whole nother game with a wholly fucking recontextualized, fucked up map and new quests, and it's very weird. And I think the uncompromising nature of a lot of the choices Dragon's Dogma makes is part of what compelled me to it.
Sure. Up next for me is Fortnite. Uh, at the in the end of the year video we made last year,
Yeah,
I mentioned in, I guess, an honorable mentions thing that I'd started playing a little bit of Fortnite with my brother. Um, but Fortnite, obviously, major cultural touchstone now, still as popular as it's ever been, um, became a gigantic force in my life because all my friends started playing it in 2024, almost a
yeah.
decade after the Battle Royale version came out and popularized the game. It's still just as relevant, still just as playable today. And all my friends
Even
started
more
playing.
relevant.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, sure, yeah, the 2017, absolutely, yeah. And it became the social time for a very significant percentage of my close friend group, and watching them get into this game more and more and more, and get into the I'm mostly talking about the battle royale mode here. I really didn't play too much of the other side games within Fortnite, but watching them get into Fortnite and playing it more myself, because I've still put in probably 40 hours into Fortnite this year.
Yeah.
Mostly front loaded in the year, but I really found a game that I consistently enjoy and really do see the social appeal of, because it's a game that really facilitates
Sure.
what you were complimenting earlier about Riders Republic, doing goofy things with your friends, hopping in the car, one person standing on top, you're doing a song or an emote, and you're in a dumb skin. Like, it really is about the joy of just something goofy happening uh,
Absolutely.
with your friends. And I remember uh, like building these inside jokes with my friends as we would play Fortnite. I started calling the shield potions that you have in the game. Started calling them sloppies, and so we was like, "Hey, give me a big sloppy." It built this sense of
Yeah.
camaraderie and place that I have with my friends, and they would always play this. I can't remember what it is, but they would play the same song like over and over again, and it would become like a trigger response, like, "Stop playing that song!" And I never paid any money for this game, so into this game, so I only have a couple of free skins, and so my friends would then make jokes about Explorer Emily and Holiday Boxy and these free fucking skins that I had because I wouldn't pay any money. And then they would also always talk about what new skins were coming, what new updates were happening, and a lot happened last year in Fortnite. They really did a great job at keeping the game consistently relevant. I mean, easily every other month there was something major that people were consistently talking about. My friends were always excited. We would get out of a movie and they would pull out their phone. The first thing you do is like, "What's in the shop?" And like I firsthand experienced the massive appeal of this game, and I'm not the microtransactions guy, so that's not part of the reason I like the game. But it's a great game even if you don't spend any money, and it's also a fucking insane money and time sink if you do want to grind up your battle pass to the top thing and spend a lot of money on it, which multiple of my friends did a lot of.
It's a metaverse. It's
Yeah.
a successful metaverse. It's amazing. It's so bizarre. I don't really play Fortnite, but I said many, many, many months ago, when Master Chief comes, Fortnite,
Yeah.
I'll play some Fortnite. And he finally came on the night before my birthday,
Yeah.
which was very
Fortuitous.
odd thing. It was very fortuitous. So I bought, by the way, it's a little outrageous that it was fucking $25 to get that skin.
This
But I
is
did it
why
for
I
the
don't
boys.
do it.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, I did it for the boys. I mean, it is months long at that point that I've
Yeah.
been saying
Yeah,
this. So
yeah.
I had to. I couldn't not. But I don't. I play it and I'm like, I don't get this, but I appreciate it.
Yeah.
And I think that this year, watching you guys play, coming downstairs, you'd often be on Fortnite,
Mm-hmm.
understanding what's going on, going out to the bar and then coming home and playing the Fortnite festival.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
I get it now, I think.
Yeah.
It's not my thing, but I get it. And I it's a cultural force that extends so far beyond just traditional gaming circles. It's very special.
Yeah. Totally.
Um,
Number 11.
speaking of cultural, the word cultural, a word starting with C, let's talk about a game here where the subtitle starts with a C as well, and that's F-Zero Climax.
All right, buddy. Okay.
This is a game.
Stop. That joke's not funny. You've made
I
that
knew it
joke
was
like twice in this video. Stop it.
F-Zero Climax was a Game Boy Advance F-Zero title that only released in Japan.
Yeah.
That I hadn't played until it was circulated much more widely on Nintendo Switch Online just a couple months ago, in fact.
Yeah.
And what I found in it is one of my favorite F-Zero games. I think it probably sits just below F-Zero X in my ranking. And the reason for that is I think it marries the sense of speed of F-Zero and the clarity of F-Zero X with no, let me rewind.
Okay.
It has here's the foundation.
Does it have speed?
Hold on.
Okay.
It does have speed. It has the right amount of speed. Because F-Zero GX on GameCube, I think is really cool, but I think it's too crazy. There's
Sure.
too much shit going
Yeah.
on in that game. F-Zero X is a little bit more readable. The levels aren't as outrageous. And so F-Zero X is sort of my favorite. And when it comes to the console games, the reason that that Climax slots in just above GX and below X for me is that I think it has that clarity and that sense of speed that X has, but it also has mechanics that are unique to it and unique to these in a sense of play that only the GBA titles have. And while I think GP Legend is also a great game, I think Climax is just simply better than it. And it was a real treat getting to play this one earlier this year, and it coming to NSO was quite a significant moment in my view of Nintendo's 2024. So I highly recommend people check out Climax. Don't get scared away by the fact that the main menu is in Japanese, because the game is largely actually in English. Highly recommend playing it. I don't actually know why so much of it is in English, but it is.
Yeah. And then why didn't they just go the extra fucking 20% and make the whole game in English and sell it to people for money? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I want to know that story. My number 11 game is Balatro. A game that I didn't expect to like because I didn't understand poker. And I do
Yeah.
largely have a disinterest in games based on real world things that I'm not interested in the real world version of. Sports games
Sure.
are the specific example that I jump to. I don't understand football or basketball or soccer, just in general. I mean, I largely do. I'm
They
not
don't
that
move
dumb.
you.
No, but like I also I look at like a football play and I'm like I don't like how do you know what that says? Like it
Yeah.
doesn't make any sense. Um, and poker's the same way. From like how do you remember like what is right to put down and how to convince people? Like what are the hands and stuff? And so when I played Blotch for the first time, I probably played for an hour. And I'm like, I don't get this. Ew, what's happening here? But Balatro uses the aesthetic of a deck of cards, but it's not a card game. I don't know what it is. It's a demon spawned from the seventh circle of hell that has arrived onto phones and Nintendo Switches and Steam. That really really sucked me in a lot. I mean, this is outside of Fortnite probably the game that I revisited the most over the course of the year because it's a great one more run game, as many people know. Because it has such a great sense of build to it, where
Yeah.
you start off very very simple. You're like, okay, well, which hands am I going to choose? Which basic jokers am I going to get? But as soon as you start making these micro decisions to buy a pack, to get rid of a few cards, to buy a set of jokers and reorder them so they build your combos in interesting ways, you start to just you build momentum, and it's this amping up of oh shit, okay, this is really starting to work,
Yeah.
and then it all comes crashing down, and you're like, ah, shit, but I can do that. I can do it again. Let's see what happens next time. And because of its replayability and inherent variety and being a roguelike, I would just pick it up and play one or two rounds every once in a while, multiple times throughout the course of the year, which really does not happen to me. Even with roguelikes that I enjoy, they're usually not in that situation, but also having it on Switch and having the touch screen, like it was just a perfect time and place and totally unique idea that obviously took the world by storm. I mean, I would not be surprised if we're looking back at the end of the 2020s and Balatro is still one of the most popular and influential and iconic indie games of the decade. It really is special, and I was not expecting to like it, and now it's one of my like go-to, just like chill around games. It also has great post-launch free content with like because
Yeah.
everyone loves this game so much that people from fucking Cyberpunk 2077 to like Tunic want their characters in this game, and there's such a sense of whimsicality to all the little funny jokers and stuff, and the internet has really glommed on to like making jokes about these jokers and posting that fucking like Balatro Joker plushie like
Yes.
everywhere, and fucking Ben Starr did this Balatro like horror short film. Like this game has a culture of its own, and I'm really glad that I gave it a try and then was able to like meet it on its level and really really appreciate it.
Absolutely. And we have a standalone video about Balatro as well that I
Yeah,
recommend people check out for a little bit more talk on it.
yeah.
My next game here is Metroid Prime 3 Corruption.
We are in our top 10.
We are in our top 10.
Well, wait, hold on. Why don't we do the community submissions now?
Sure,
Yeah,
sure, sure.
we were gonna
sure.
save them for the top 5, but like 10 makes more
Yeah.
sense, and that puts it
Let's,
slightly closer to the middle of the video.
let's have a look here. What's the time? We'll make this timestamp.
At the bottom,
Yeah,
153.
53. Okay, so we'll do community submissions here. Tucker, when you're right, you're right. When you're wrong,
Often.
you're wrong.
Oh,
I always say this about you. Let's look at the submissions here and
we
let's.
asked our community members what a game that really moved them that they played in 2024 was, and asked them to explain why that it impacted them
Yeah.
and why they think they'll be remembering it down into the future.
Yeah, so let's start here with Phil,
Yep.
who said, I finally played The Forgotten City in 2024, and I want to shout that out as an experience that really stuck with me, creating just enough characters to feel worth exploring, and for all of them to stick with me after the 6 to 8 hour play experience. I know you're a big fan of this one.
Yeah, but I mean, he described it perfectly. I love that game,
Yeah.
and I'm really interested to see what that team does next. So yeah, great,
Yeah,
great
and I
pick.
feel like it's also living as a new design touchstone as well because it was cited
Mm.
a lot with Indiana Jones. So I
Oh
think it's the sort of
really?
game
Oh,
that,
I don't think I've heard that. That's awesome though.
yeah, I think it's Danny O'Dwyer and some other people were talking about it. So I
Sure.
think it's going to be one that lives on in the memory, even if it wasn't the biggest game.
Yeah. Our friend Eric says, I like Euphoria the Saga 2 because it brought back a classic NES game and looked nice.
It does look really
Yeah,
nice.
I love the
I
aesthetic
really like,
of
yeah.
Euphoria.
I've
Yeah.
not played the Euphoria games, but I do like the aesthetic of those.
Yeah.
Um, our friend Adam here says, I like to raise Thank Goodness You're Here, which is a delightful
Oh,
little British indie game made by two people in Yorkshire who probably wasted way too much of the budget on getting Matt Berry to appear. It's a comedy game, but it's pure British humor. It's like playing a Monty Python game with a good sprinkle of carry on. For any comedy aficionado, it's a short must play.
yeah.
I didn't beat this game.
Hmm.
However, what I did play of it, I truly believe is among the funniest experiences I've had with a game. They spare no expense in creating little bits.
Yeah. Oh,
And
God, yeah.
I think that just makes for such a special game. This really is one that I implore people to check out.
Yeah, totally. And I like the way that he describes it as like playing through a long Monty Python sketch. I
Yeah.
love Monty Python in the sense of humor and the sense of irreverence that this game absolutely has. And I just consistently think of like all these little characters that just don't make a lot of sense, but they have like an internal
Yeah.
cohesion to it. Yeah, it's awesome. It's that's a very very special game. And I'm that is a game that got the flowers that I think it deserved. I mean, like
Yes.
people really glommed onto it. It has a, I mean, we didn't even mention, but the art style is fantastic. I mean, you look at the game and you're like, I can't believe they're playing this. I really thought that it was like an experimental animation or something when I
Yeah.
first saw it like a year and a half ago. And then I played it. I'm like, no, the game just looks like that. It's yeah, great pick. Steven says, discovering the Stalker franchise in 2024 gave me a real Junji Ito, quote unquote, this is my hole, it was made for me moment. I'm not familiar with that, but I understand the sentiment, I guess. He says, imagine my delight then when the 2024 installment retains the spirit of 2007 classic and gives me more. As somebody who prizes cohesion, Stalker 2 just speaks to me deeply, all the abrasive mechanics contributing to an intentional struggle that creates immersion as well as philosophical commentary. It's a weird game for weird people made on a large canvas. It's rare for the blown out modern version to keep the scrappy soul by cutting of the cult thing you love. This just nailed that. It's my hole. It was made for me.
I love that sentiment. I mean, I don't
Yeah,
really have
we
anything to
love
say
your
about
hole.
Stalker.
Oh, I don't either.
But
I don't know if I'm ever gonna play it, but it's a game that I think is compellingly unique in the modern ecosystem, and so
yeah.
there's certainly the chance that I play like 90 minutes of it at some point. But I'm really glad that it works for its intended audience, and a fucking massive audience as well. Like
Yeah.
that game sold like ungodly well. So congratulations to GSC Game World. What does the GSC stand for? I have no idea, and we'll never know.
We'll have to talk about them a lot more in depth about the conditions under which they made the game and the
Yeah,
resilience of the team in our recent video doing
our award-winning video.
our award-winning video tier list of 2024 game studios. Next comment here comes from our friend Andrew Rosecove, of my Star Wars Show fame. Always gotta say it. Just yesterday, I finally played through Pentiment. Came out back in 2022, but I got distracted back then and only made it an hour in. After 16 hours, I finally have beat it and it's one of the most impactful games I've played. The murder mystery that unfolds through 16th century
Bavaria.
Bavaria shown in the beautifully illustrated
I think you
woodcut
spelled
styles.
Bavaria wrong, which is why
Yeah,
I
I
have a hard
think
time reading it. It says Moravia.
yeah. It's pretty light on action, but heavy on character and narrative as one would expect from Obsidian.
Yeah.
The game touches on themes of truth, religious zeal, family, community politics, predestination, and the reckoning of tradition when presented with new ideas, while also focusing on time as a core mechanic and theme. The game unfolds over shared meals with various members of the village, and also through speech and skill checks that you can shape your character's background through. It is a beautiful experience, one that I wish I could gush more about, but I will leave it there.
Yeah. I've also played through like 3/4 of Pentiment this year. And I really did enjoy what I played because it is, for me, what exemplifies the great part of the modern games ecosystem is that someone can deliver a totally unique vision.
Absolutely.
The things that he mentions about a significant portion of the game, like having meals with other people and just like listening to their like family struggles, is very unique. And the way that it uses history and culture and linguistics as like its driving central premises. No, games don't do that. What the fuck are you talking about? But yeah, it's really, really, really cool. I mean, and it's the perfect kind of game where it's like, for Xbox and for Game Pass, it's like, it. I believe, like when knowing the production realities of it, it was made because they wanted something small for Game Pass, and they gave a creative and a small team the time that they needed to deliver on their vision, and they really did. That's a game that has a great no clip documentary, so I recommend you go check that out.
Obsidian always going beast mode.
Beast mode, and they're gonna go beast mode maybe twice this year.
Yeah.
Finally, our friend Sis Scott says the game I loved that I played in 2024 the most was The Legends of Heroes: Trails Through Daybreak. It was darker entry for the series than usual, and it had characters actually die, something that hadn't done since like the first arc essentially. Characters that did die in the later arc of the series basically got undone with magic, so it didn't really impact nearly as much when characters you get close to actually die for good. It was a welcome back to form to see characters were on the chopping board. They also did 2 combat types with action combat and turn-based combat, which was a new change for the series. Also a brand new main character with Van, who was a character that was more gray than most protagonists in the series. Anyway, I had a lot of love in the game. It's an okay starting spot for the Trail series, but what the best one will be this year with the remake of the first game coming out.
Now here's the thing about this, Tucker. I'm surprised that they can even have new ideas in the Trail series because these games come out like 10 times a year.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm not. Sorry, I shouldn't. I'm not. No, Sis Scott, I love that you love The Legend of Heroes, and I shouldn't have insulted your contribution talking about one of the games you love from 2024. I shouldn't have done that. I think Tales is amazing. Sorry, no, that's a different series. This is The Legend of Heroes.
No, but he said the Trail series. It says Trails Through Daybreak. That means it's a Trails game, right?
But it's The Legend of Heroes :
But
I don't fucking know. Sis Scott, thank you for writing
it. But is Hellblade 2 part of the Senua's Saga series then?
No, but what I'm saying is, isn't the series The Legend of Heroes?
But I thought he said... Who the fuck knows?
Know.
Abram, who the fuck knows?
I don't know. Thank you very much, Sis Scott, as always.
Look, as we'll get to a couple of JRPG teams higher up on my list, because I played a couple of JRPGs I really loved this year, there are a few teams that I'm pushing myself to learn more about.
Yeah.
But fucking Falcom and NIS and East and Trails and... I mean, look, I want to be a master of the games industry, but I recognize that there's that section of the games industry that I don't even know if I should, like, bother with. Because every time Bo makes one of these what games are coming out in this month video, it's fucking half of them are these goddamn things. I was
reflecting on this exact thing. There's so many of these. They are coming out in January alone.
I don't understand. Well, but I respect them so much, though. Because what it clearly means is that they market and budget properly. So they can do a fucking 40 entry series with all sorts of spin-offs to the exact audience that it needs to, and they can just keep making them at a comfortable pace.
They're like RGG, but it's not as visible as RGG.
Yeah, totally. Because, frankly, because all the games look and sound the same from all these goddamn companies. That's really the problem for me. Is we're looking at this, I'm like, I don't know which series that is a part of. Because they fucking they introduce all these fucking colons and subtitles and shit. It's like and they're all so similar. And there's fucking Valkyria Chronicles. I don't know what's going on. Yeah.
What about Neptunia Riders versus Doggos?
I don't know. Okay, that was in one of Bo's pickups or coming out this month videos, and he's like, fans of the Neptunia series, let me know what this is about. I'm like, what the fuck is Neptunia? That's a series? Is it an anime? Is it a video game? I don't know.
I don't fucking know.
I don't know, man. Fuck.
I don't know.
Maybe I don't like the video games industry.
Scott, ultimately, you know what? I tried to be nice. Here's the reality. Better luck next time. Write about a platformer, okay? Thank you for submitting. So give me the timestamp again, because that'll be community timestamp and now into our top 10.
2:03:38.
Great.
10 minutes.
Okay.
We talk about for 10 minutes. You want to talk about platformer? You want to get out of that whatever sticky place we were just in? My number 10. Wait, what?
But I said my number 10. Remember? Then when we
I'm
did an
next.
injunction.
Oh, I'm
No, I
sorry.
said
No,
number.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah,
I
you see what I'm
apologize.
saying? You
Yes.
understand?
Yes.
Metroid Prime 3 Corruption
Oh, sure.
is my 10th game here. I finally completed my journey of playing all of the Prime games. But what's interesting is to do that, I looped back to where I began as a kid
Hmm.
because I played Prime 3 Corruption as my first Metroid game, and I got stuck really, really, really early on in
Yeah.
it. But I was really captivated by the world of Metroid, and from I was off to the races from there on out when I really fell in love with the series when I was in high school. But coming back to Prime 3 Corruption, I came to really appreciate and love this game, not as much as Prime 1, but on its own terms, in a way similar to Halo 4, actually, because
Sure.
this game is a lot more of a linear, cinematic, action-focused game than either of its predecessors. And indeed, while a lot of people cite Metroid Other M as the start of this sort of different characterization and different tenor for the Metroid series, I actually think you got to look at Prime 3 Corruption and the ways
Oh,
that it
sure.
emphasizes action
Yeah.
and this sort of wider universe in a way that the games before it simply didn't. And in dialing into that tone, I found a game here that I truly love, and I hope it comes to Switch
Yeah.
because I want more people to play it. I think it'd be cool if Echoes came over and was improved, but I think that Echoes is a fairly weak game in all honesty.
Hmm.
Corruption, I think, by presenting something different from Prime 1 while still retaining the heart of the vibe,
Yeah.
eh, curated a game that I think is a lot more approachable
Sure.
actually than the first.
Hmm.
And I actually think that because I feel like as much as Prime is sort of heralded as one of the essential games, and for as much as it is one of my favorites of all time, there's a lot of people I know and a lot of people online who played that remastered for the first time and didn't fuck with it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's fine. And I actually think that if a lot of people played Prime 3, they would maybe get more
Sure.
mileage out of the
Yeah,
series.
that's very interesting.
So I really, really implore people to check out Corruption. I think it's a truly special and underrated entry in the
Yeah.
Metroid canon. And I'm really pleased to be in a position, other than Hunters, which I still probably knock out,
Yeah. Yeah, you
to
will.
be ready for Beyond, which I can't even believe we're in the year of.
Yeah.
I can't wait. So,
Here's my future projection, Abram.
yeah.
Metroid Prime 4 comes out, one of the most anticipated games that Nintendo's ever produced. Um,
Yeah.
you know, let's just say it'll be quality. People love it. For sake of argument. Um, and what I easily expect is for especially 3 to get a big boost in popularity from the what I assume will be much bigger success of Prime 4 is that
Yeah.
if even if it is they put out 3 afterwards or something. What's interesting to me about the Metroid Prime series, and we don't know a lot about 4, but from those 3 earlier games, is they came out really quickly, but they're all
Yeah.
actually surprisingly different games. It's a trilogy, but they all have their own identity and own ideas that make uh, that make like each one have their own sort of appeal.
Absolutely.
And I assume 4 will also be different enough to where it's like it still warrants going back and checking out 3. So I expect this game to be a lot more popular by the end of like 2026. I think people will be talking about it a lot more.
I certainly hope so, and I also anticipate that 4 will take a lot of cues from 3.
Yeah.
Particularly because a lot of people working on 4 are coming from COD and
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
coming from Halo and they're coming from these games that already clearly 3 was looking at. But
Yep.
there we go.
Yep. Um, I'm disappointed that you didn't talk about a platformer.
I'm about to, if that makes you feel better.
Fine. My number 10 is Astrobot Rescue Mission. I
Oh,
was
okay.
graciously given a gift of a PSVR from Mr. Abram Buhner, who could not play it with it himself, and he knew that I would get a little bit more appreciation out of the wider VR library and Sony's games and all that. And so now I own a PSVR, and first thing I did, because of course the first thing I did was put in Astrobot Rescue Mission, which
Yeah.
to my mind is one of like the 3 VR defining games of all time. And to this point, VR hasn't been around for that long, but I would say Astrobot Rescue Mission, maybe, well, of course, Half-Life Alyx, and then
Vader Immortal.
no, either like super hot Beat Saber or
I
Tetris
think it's Beat
Effect.
Saber. I think
Yeah,
it's Beat
Beat Saber
Saber.
probably. Yeah. So, but Astrobot Rescue Mission was the one that I would always hear people be like, "No, VR is awesome. Like you got to play this game. Like even outside of it being VR, it's amazing." And I I agree with that. But I think what it does, what that phrase, even outside of VR, it would be a great game. What that does is downplay the reason why this game is actually special, is that it is in VR and that it is a pretty traditional 3D platformer, all things considered, as we have seen with Astrobot and Astro's Playroom as well. Astro on like a level design level, it's in the vein of things you experienced before. But
Yeah.
Astrobot Rescue Mission, because Astro is a little guy and you're controlling him and you see your controller and you can peer down and look at him and he'll wave up at you or he'll be on your face and he'll be like rubbing around and stuff and they can splash water up at you and enemies can come out from behind you and you have to like, crane your neck up to look on the other side of the level geometry to find a chameleon to unlock a secret level. It really rewrites the way you interact with what on a level design basis is a traditional 3D platformer, but you're doing this.
Yeah.
You're going around. You're craning your neck. You're looking at this from different angles. And Astro is going behind things, so you gotta look around. You gotta find him. It's a tactile, totally unique sensory experience that I platinumed because it just
Yeah.
is so unique and addicting and perfectly lengthed. Even the platinum, I think, only took me like 15 hours, something like that. Really love this game. And now that I've actually experienced the roots of Astro with Rescue Mission, I'm like, Asobi's had it since day one. Like this
Yeah.
is they're all gas no brakes. They're their whole gameography so far.
Yeah, I mean, I got this game. I got my PSVR late. I got it once it was a lot
So did
cheaper
I.
for Christmas. And I remember really so I gave it to you because I love you and I knew you would value it a lot more than I did, but I also gave it to you because it physically makes me ill. It
Yes,
doesn't matter
yes,
what the game is, I can't use it.
yeah.
Um, but what I liked about Rescue Mission, what I was able to play of it, and what I remembered watching you play it
Mm,
earlier this year, is that and this is an apt comparison. It's a common comparison, but the comparison between it and Mario 64,
sure.
particularly the comparison to something like the
Yeah,
Lakitu
yeah,
camera in 64, made the idea of controlling a camera, which was then novel, into a tangible thing that you can understand in the context of the game world.
yeah,
Player Rescue Mission does that for you as a person
yeah,
and your controller, and I think it's just extremely smart. Um, I think that if you've just played PS5 Astrobot, you're not missing out
mm,
necessarily, um, particularly given the hoops you'd need to jump
yeah. Of
through.
course. Yeah, yeah,
And the fact that, as we talked about in that big review of Astrobot 2024, it takes everything from this game
yeah,
and from Playroom. But you're right that there is a unique and irreplaceable
yeah.
value to experiencing it in VR.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very special game.
Yep.
Next for me is another platformer, and this is
Phew.
Penny's Big Breakaway.
Oh, holy shit! I didn't realize it was that high. God damn.
I
Above an F
love,
Zero game. God.
yeah, and a Metro game.
And a Halo game, technically, because you talked about four all the
It
way
is.
at the beginning.
I absolutely love Penny's Big Breakaway, and I want to give a very quick mention to Hunter Bridges, the director of this game,
Oh.
who also put out a game, who also was, I think, a design director, I forget his exact title, in Sonic Mania,
Mm.
and also put out a game on Playdate this year called Zero Zero Perfect Stop, which is a fun little train simulation game
Mm.
that I had a lot of fun with as well. But Penny's Big Breakaway is so singular to its detriment, and
Yeah.
that's why I think it's special. I look at Penny's Big Breakaway and I say, wow, this is the least polished, least accessible version of this game.
Yeah.
And that's why I loved it.
Yeah.
Because to me, I looked at it and I saw a team, an Evening Star, that had just made a massively successful, massively accessible, defining platformer in Sonic Mania.
Yeah.
And then they said, you know what? Our tastes, our interests in Sega, because there's a lot of Sega
Yeah. Totally.
Saturn DNA in here and all kinds of shit. Our tastes that are a lot weirder, a lot nicher, and we're just gonna make that, and you're gonna buy this on the pedigree of our name and the marketing or not, and we don't give a fuck if you like it or not. This is a truly singular platforming vision.
Yeah,
And for every rough edge and odd choice, where a lot of people saw an easy off ramp out of the game, I saw another test, another poke from the developer to see if you're on
sure.
their level. And I don't mean that in terms of skill. I mean that in
No,
terms of like brainwave.
you can mean it in terms of skill. Because that's the crazy thing about Penny's Big Breakaway is
Yeah.
it has probably the highest skill floor of a 3D platform I've ever seen.
Yeah, and that's totally right. But I also think that it's once if you're attuned to their frequency, it's not that hard. It's more so that you'll encounter a bouncy platform, but the bouncy platform sits inside a larger platform, and there's a gap between the two you can fall between. And
Mm,
I'm like, that is just a weird, odd choice. And these are people who know better. And I think the fact that they know better and made such a prickly game anyway, that is so particular but so freeing in your movement options, is such a counterpoint to an Astrobot or an
oh,
Odyssey.
sure.
Not that it's better, but
Yeah.
that it's different in a way that I found extremely compelling.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know why they thought that, or I'll put it this way, I don't know why Private Division thought that this was the game to give the big
Yeah,
marketing
yeah.
push to, because it's not what it presented as, but what it
Totally.
is, for me, is very, very good.
Yeah. Yeah. Very cool game. I love that game's aesthetic. I love the oranges and
Yeah,
the
yeah,
greens and the funny little penguin guys and the yo-yo that's a dog and all that shit. That's some cool stuff. Great visual
yeah.
language going on there, and I hope that team is able to stick around enough to make at least another game that would, I mean, frankly, like the reason why I say that is because Penny's Big Breakaway wasn't a particularly big commercial success, and so
It didn't speak to you. It didn't speak to Bo. There's a
no,
lot of
yeah.
people I know who tried it who just didn't bounce off of it completely and quickly.
But I think they have such a. I know they can deliver something that I like because I really like Sonic
Yeah,
Mania, and I think they have such a sense of, in the way that Yacht Club did with Shovel Knight, a sense of what made old design special while bringing it into a modern day. That I hope that they're able to make another game. What I hope from Evening Star, right, that's the name of the team, is that they do a one for us, one for them thing, where every
Fair.
other game they make a big enough success to keep them going, so that they can make like the pricklier, weirder game in the middle.
Yeah.
So, but next time their next game that they put out, I'll like, hopefully. So, my number 9 is a game I probably wouldn't have even expected to have played in 2024. Days Gone was a game that I kind of just saw as a joke, honestly.
Yeah.
Before this year, it was a part of the late PS4 massive game lineup that always
Yeah.
felt like the odd one out. It felt like the black sheep of the family. You're getting Death Stranding and Spider-Man and Last of Us 2 and God of War and Horizon. Oh, there's Death Stranding out in the corner. A game that, especially at launch, people thought was just okay and fell into a lot of the trappings of an open world that people thought were like, hey, this is pretty rote, especially at that point when it released.
And it's also had a weird reputation and discourse around it
Hmm.
since.
Yeah,
It's just always been in a weird position.
but Days Gone, I love almost all those games that I mentioned. That late PS4 era, I think, is really, really special for big budget AAA games. But Days Gone is a much scrappier game than all those other ones. We're talking
Yeah.
about Insomniac and Sony Santa Monica and fucking Hideo Kojima, and like the biggest teams with like the most polish and budget and all this stuff that have been doing this for decades. And then you talk about Godspeed Bend Studio, the black sheep studio of the PlayStation Studios family
Yeah.
that had made other people's games for like a decade. They made a Killzone game. They made Uncharted Golden Abyss. Of course, they did Siphon Filter back in the day. But they're bobbing and weaving for so much of their history, and then were given the chance to do a game with the big boys. Ben Studio taking a leap and standing up there on stage
Yeah.
next to Horizon and God of War and Spider-Man. And it does show in some areas that this is their first time making an open world game. Something structurally about it don't quite make a lot of sense, but it has a lot of ideas of its own, actually.
Yeah.
In the way that you progress through this giant map, and then it continues to expand over the course of the story. In the way in which you really are a bounty hunter in a way that a lot of games do, which is that you're like this lone vagrant guy who goes out and does tasks and then returns, but you're not a part of the community because
Yeah.
Deacon St. John is someone with a lot of baggage and a lot of history and a lot going on in his mind. And while on the outside he looks like this gruff, generic biker guy, the more you learn about Deacon St. John and the more you listen to the deep passion that went into Sam Witwer's performance, I think secretly Sam Witwer as Deacon St. John is one of the best video game motion capture and voice performances of all time. I learned to love this guy. Deacon St. John is a guy with so much heart and passion for his
Yeah.
friends and the things he cares about, and that locks me into a character I can resonate with, locks me into a world. And they did that beautifully here. And I platinumed this game. I explored every inch of its really richly designed Pacific Northwest open world, which is something you don't see very much of. It has totally unique terrain. It has beautiful vistas. And then, of course, there's, I think, really solid shooting, really good motorcycle movement and combat, and fucking hordes of zombies. Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Those horde battles are, I mean, that's a design feat of engineering. And how do they get all these individual AIs to like work separately but also together so they're this giant thing that you're like fighting against, and all the weapons by the end of the game are tuned to you just like tearing through hordes, and you're scrambling for your life as you run away from them and chuck a bomb and like dive and grab something. You're like building something on the fly, like, oh fuck, oh god. And somehow you come out the other side and you barely by the skin of your fucking teeth, you've killed 400 of these goddamn things. And,
Literally.
and you're like out of every ammo and every fuel that you've got in your inventory, like it is. I mean, Days Gone is a game that I think has gained actually a little bit of reputation. It's actually sold surprisingly well. A lot of people are like, well, where's the sequel? But I now have immense respect for Bend for really making a step from fucking Uncharted Golden Abyss, a PS Vita game, a linear PS Vita game, to a massive, ambitious open world that isn't perfect, but has so many of its own ideas and identity that I think people just totally overlook.
Yeah, and I think people also unfairly say that it falls into like the generic tropes of open world games, unlike Sony's other games, which is to ignore the fact that a game like Horizon Zero Dawn is even more archetypal
Yeah, I would agree.
than a game like Days Gone.
Yeah.
I was actually quite gripped watching you do some of those late horde battles. They're insane. And also, Sam Witwer is just one of the goats, so
Yeah, he's awesome.
he's always gonna do something great.
Yeah.
My next spot here goes to Destiny 2.
Cool.
It particularly goes to the Final Shape expansion.
Yeah.
However, this is also inclusive of the Witch Queen and Beyond Light, which I played this year, and
Yeah.
were lower on my list, amalgamated into one.
I see.
As Tucker can testify to, there was about a month where I basically only played Destiny, where Jean was gone, and was playing like 4 or 5 hours a night. I was just like working, I was lifting some weights, and then I would reheat my fucking batch meal dinner and play Destiny all the time. I was able to reconnect to a love I have for this universe that was much stronger in high school when I played a lot more Destiny. To return to it now was to step into something familiar, but to step into something that had grown immensely. And while I will never pretend that the stigma around Destiny being impossible to get into is false, I think that if you bring a sledgehammer with you, you can just smash your way in.
Sure.
And have a great time. Particularly when you have an
Maybe I
expansion.
need to be a foreman.
Maybe I'd be a foreman. Particularly when you have an expansion like the Final Shape, which really is the closest Bungie has come to making a proper linear FPS campaign since Halo Reach.
Yeah.
It really is. It cuts away a lot of the fat that other Destiny campaigns have, because a lot of those serve to introduce you to new types of persistent PvE missions and send you on a course through these social hubs. The Final Shape expansion exists in a totally bespoke area with totally bespoke missions. And because of that, not only did I reconnect to my love of Destiny from high school, I re-engaged with my love of these linear Bungie campaigns that I revisit constantly in Halo.
Yeah.
And so the sum of those parts for me was a game that I just couldn't put down and reminded me not only why I love Bungie, but why I love the world of Destiny in particular.
Mm.
And it has me very excited to be, in a manner of speaking, up to date. So when we
Yeah.
start getting
Yeah,
like
you
Codename
basically are.
Frontiers, yeah, we get the Codename Frontiers stuff next year, and then the more
This
substantial
year,
next
right?
step, whether that's 5, I'll be ready for it, and I'm not gonna fall off the wagon here. I
Yeah.
really love Destiny, and I love that month I spent basically only playing it.
Yeah. Yeah. And also, for the final shape, good Lord Almighty, they art directed that goddamn expansion without an inch of their life. Jesus
Yeah, it's
Christ,
crazy.
there are some concepts there
Yeah,
that don't I like. I don't even I don't know any of this. I don't know anything about Destiny, frankly.
yeah.
And in my mind, it was just kind of a like, and maybe this is just Destiny 1 or who the fuck knows. Like I don't know, like obelisks on the moon. Like
That was Destiny 1,
that's like
yeah.
my mental image of Destiny. But you're like this is some interstellar shit in Final Shape,
It's
and I'm like, I
crazy.
can't. What the fuck? This
Yeah.
is Destiny. What are you talking about? Very cool stuff. Next up is Wilmot Works It Out, another game that I had a chance to talk to a developer of, and I think that is the most excited that I've ever been for one of my interviews that I've
Yeah.
done, because Wilmot's Warehouse was one of my favorite games. You can go back to our 2021 best games of the year video, I think, and I think it was in my top 5 or something like that. That's a game I really really love, and Wilmot Works It Out might be better, but it's a lot more accessible of a game,
Yeah.
and it it balances this really fascinating line where Wilmot Works Out is a puzzle game. It is a jigsaw puzzle game. It is you
Yeah.
are putting together pieces to make a larger image. This is something that basically everyone has some sort of experience with, which makes it very accessible, like conceptually, to people. You don't have to teach them all sorts of fucking video game mechanics. You're like, well, you move the piece next to the part that it goes next to. That's that's the premise. But with Walmart Works It Out, and where I think a lot of people might look at something like that and be like, because jigsaw puzzle games aren't particularly common. It's like,
Yeah.
well, like if it's that similar, like why don't you just do a real puzzle? And I was just thinking about this, and I'm like, well, what is it about Walmart Works It Out that I think really makes it worth playing as a markedly different experience, not only from other puzzle games, but from doing a real life jigsaw puzzle? And it's because it uses the special elements of its design to keep you engaged in a totally different way. And the way
Yeah.
I mean that is you'll be delivered a box of pieces in Wilmot's Warehouse, or in Wilmot Works It Out. And there will be 20 pieces in there, and 15 of them will be for the puzzle that you're doing. 5 of them will be for puzzles that you've never seen yet. And
Yeah.
and because of the way that they've done this beautiful pastel art style, and designed all these puzzles, to have like the divisions are such that like certain things will look sort of like other things, but once you put them together, like, it's not quite right. You have this like layered, evolving experience as you play each chapter, and the puzzles start to like mirror each other and mix together in interesting ways, and you're like, oh, I wasn't expecting that. And then basically, as you put together, you're like revealing these little jokes that you can't do that with a real puzzle. I mean, if you're a fucking asshole, you would have to have someone else do that to you, and you'd hate them for it. If someone
Yeah.
like came over to your puzzle and dumped a half a box of another puzzle, and you're like it in a real life it would suck, but they really pace it out very well. It's got this really Ellie Rainsbury is a phenomenal composer for this game that really makes it like so zen to do. And then there's also this fascinating narrative working through it of Wilmot being sort of an isolationist guy who's like home alone all the time, and really the only interaction he has is with his mailman, who brings him the puzzle boxes. And then she starts doing the puzzles, and so she'll start talking to you about puzzles you did like an hour ago, and she's like, "Oh, you remember this puzzle? Like that was really fun to put together." And she's telling you the story about how she's having issues with her family, and her sister and her aren't quite getting along, and she really wants to travel the world, and it actually is about like working your way through like relationship issues in the background of this fucking jigsaw puzzle game. And it looks great, and it sounds great, and it's not too long, and then you unlock this. I don't know if you know this. Well, I guess you listened to the fucking interview,
I did.
but when you finish the game, you unlock this fucking endless mode that is this giant room where they deliver all the puzzles to you at once. And you have to just put them together. It's a crazy game that I think
Yeah.
there's really nothing like it. And it also was the second game they put out this year, because Flock also
I
released on Game Pass early in the year.
I feel like a jerk off and a loser for having not played it yet. I really, really want to.
Yeah,
I love
you
the
should play
demo,
it,
and
and John should play it.
that's totally right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna recommend that to her.
Well,
Um,
still need to play it on your Steam Deck though. It's not on anything else yet.
yeah, that's fine.
Can she get over that?
I, I think she can.
She's like,
She's
what
got
what
hands.
the hell is this? Oh. There's no
Um,
Joy-Con. How am I supposed to use it? I think you'll
but
really
yeah,
like it though. It's super, super special.
and people, please listen to that Dev Dive. I thought it was really fascinating. My next game here is my puzzler of the year, and that's Meteos.
Oh, this is your top 10 games? Jesus fuck.
Give it 5 stars. I think Meteos is amazing. I think that Meteos is the best non-Smash Brothers game Sakurai has worked on, and I think it's better than most of the Smash Brothers games, other than 4 and Ultimate, probably.
Yeah.
Maybe Brawl. It's close with Brawl. What I love about Meteos is that you can learn about it in such an interesting way, because Sakurai made a video about the process of pitching Meteos, in which he literally shows the pitch deck for it, and he walks you through where his head was at. And in doing so, in seeing that point A and seeing point B of the game, really amazing how Sakurai had a clear vision for how the falling block puzzler could do something different.
Yeah.
And then how he executed on it with another goat of the craft, Tetsuya Mizuguchi.
Yeah.
Tetris Effect, Luminous,
Yeah.
Rez.
Yeah.
For people who don't clock that in immediately. So that collaboration of people who I love,
Yeah.
coming to a genre that I really adore. I'm a massive Tetris fan, and doing something unique and action focused with it is so fascinating. The thing about Meteos is that you're in a constant war with planets. You're fighting planets in this game.
Yeah.
And they're throwing pieces at you and you're throwing them back. And I mean literally throwing them. On the DS with the stylus, you can
Chuck
throw
your
pieces
DS.
into the air. Or chuck your DS. And the goal is to make combos that launch and become missiles. But then the goal is to make another combo beneath it to launch a secondary boost into the one above it. And then the first one, as these two are flying together, you match again in the air. And they shoot up with 3 times power. You're doing character action game combos in a falling block puzzle
Yeah.
game. And that is the sort of genius that only guys like this can create.
Sure.
I absolutely was blown away by Meteos, and it's going to be the sort of game that I always have handy.
Yeah.
Because, man, to me it's as interesting as Tetris. It can never be Tetris, but
Sure.
I really, 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 really dug it.
Yeah. Yeah. The thing about Meteos and Luminous is
Yeah.
I just don't get them yet. And I
Yeah.
say yet because I can make a comparison to what I said earlier about Balatro, is there needs to be one piece that clicks into place where I actually understand how to make fucking combos with both those games. I don't know how they work. Like I played 2 hours of both Luminous and Meteos, and I'm just like, what the fuck? I don't know. It just doesn't make any fucking sense to me. But if we sit down on a call one day or for hanging out, and you're like, no, try this, and maybe they'll explain it, because for Balatro I had to watch Ludwig play it to actually know what the fuck to do, or to get an idea. So maybe I just need a little bit of a helping hand to be led into both Luminous and Meteos, and I am confident, because both of those are such unique puzzle games, falling block puzzle games in their own ways, that I'm confident that they will be games that I really learn to see the appeal of. But I don't see it now.
Tucker, to be clear, I have one. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 more. Did I do this? Did I do this right?
I have 7.
Right, because you're gonna go for yours against my Meteos.
Oh,
And
7.
I got
Yeah, you're right.
6
Meteos was your 7.
Okay.
Yeah, perfect.
Good, because I realized I had to also merge games from a different list into this one on the fly. So I got confused.
So are you
but I
still
did it right.
altering things?
No, I just realized that there's 2 games.
It's okay. You only had a year to prep this, so I understand.
Well, I realized that Endless Ocean, which I didn't roll the credits on, isn't on my games I finished list.
Yeah.
And the
No,
same
of course
goes
you fucking didn't, because that game's impossible to roll credits on. I don't think you'll ever roll credits on Endless Ocean Luminous.
And there's another game that I'm going to talk about shortly that has no credits, so I had to.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that's allowed.
Your turn.
I didn't roll credits on fucking Bejeweled Twist.
You're embarrassing me. You're
Yep.
embarrassing me.
Number 7, my beautiful blue bouncing baby boy Astrobot is back. 2 games
Ooh.
in my top 10.
Yeah.
We have talked a lot about Astrobot, as everyone has.
Yes.
But we can now frame this through the fact this game won the Game Awards Game of the Year.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's not necessarily an underdog, but it kind of is. And I really love the fact that this is the game that took the Game Awards top award home. Because Team Asobi is another one of those examples of teams that is doing it right, that is treating their employees right, that shares ideas and sources things and budgets things responsibly. And they're also working in the 3D platformer genre that doesn't get a lot of top tier competition. And I'm really excited to see the back and forth nature over the next, I mean, hopefully my entire life, though that's unlikely, of Team Asobi and EPD 8.
It'd be amazing if they put out a game the same year.
Well, maybe. But I also like the fact that they can coexist.
Yeah.
And, well, you know what's crazy, Abram?
Yeah.
Team Asobi put out all their games since the last EPD 8 game.
True.
Astrobot Rescue Mission, Astro's Playroom, and Astrobot all came out after Super Mario Odyssey. But these 2 games working at the top of this genre craft right now, I think is really, really special because it introduces some variety. And I can't wait to see what both of them do next and the ways in which this competition will inspire each of them to greater and greater heights. I think for Team Asobi, I love Astrobot, I love Rescue Mission, I love Playroom. I think they're 3 of the best 3D platformers ever made. I think they all have a similar appeal, but they each have their own special appeal. I would actually compare it quite aptly to the first 3 Pikmin games, where structurally they're very similar.
Absolutely.
But
That's
they each have their own elements that make them distinct if you're familiar enough with them to appreciate them. But I think we're only on the beginning of Asobi, like, getting better and better and better. Yeah. I am confident the next Astro game or whatever, I mean, I would love them to do a new IP next, will be better than all the games they've put out before.
I agree.
Because they're building, and they're building in a nice way where they start with a VR game, they start with some tech demos, they have the pack-in game, then they have this big game that wins Game of the Year. And they're currently, I guess, as of a couple months ago, they're being given carte blanche. I bet you that Sony, especially because the closure of Studio Japan and the massive budgets and dev times of all of their other studios, they're like, do what you want. I mean, God, Nicholas just say, Team Asobi, just do it. And so I love Astrobot, and for me, the thing I really will compliment this game on that is obviously a big draw of it, but is the thing that really makes it special to me, because otherwise it's a traditional 3D platform, which I think is great because it's great at that. But the thing that it really brings to me is actually very similar to what I was saying earlier about Riders Republic. There's a sense of kineticism and camaraderie to all these little fucking dudes. The same appeal that the fucking Mario 128 demo and Pikmin have, they're just guys everywhere. And I love exploring that hub world and building it up and watching them all do their little things and then whistling, and they all come running over. They fucking pile on top of each other. Like, I don't know, like Dave's Gone almost. I'm trying to build a narrative here. I love the Pikmin-esque element of all the little Astros that you've saved, being then able to build these wobbly bridges to go explore more. I think a 3D, like a Super Mario Odyssey style, more open 3D platformer with these the mechanics of these Astros like building things and like working together would be a phenomenally special game. And obviously I think this game is as well, but like I can see what they're gearing towards, because like people, I've never seen that in a game before, and Astrobot's just so special. It's so special.
It is, and obviously higher up on my list, so we'll get to it. My next game here is Pokemon Trading Card Game Pocket.
Oh, nice.
Man, I love this game. So when I was a kid, I used to collect the physical cards, and I had this friend Zach, and every day at recess we would play our modified version of TCG because
Yeah.
we didn't really get the proper rules.
Hmm.
Um,
No,
we,
I
we,
I don't think I've ever played an actual game of
yeah.
Pokemon cards. Um, fun, just small tangent. I used to play
Sure.
Yu-Gi-Oh cards like they were Pokemon cards because I didn't understand how
Oh,
Yu-Gi-Oh
of
worked,
course.
and so I'm like,
Yeah.
there's numbers up there. They have moves. Like I can just pretend it's Pokemon.
Yeah, I had a ton of Yu-Gi-Oh cards too, and I had even less of a sense of how that
Yeah,
game was
yeah.
actually played. The game's a lot more complicated. But yeah, we used to at recess. I went to this. I mean, I went to a fucking bizarre school, as everybody knows. But there's this big tree at the corner of our playground. We'd go sit under this
What the
tree and we'd play
hell?
Pokemon. Yeah,
That's
and
bizarre.
we'd like miss the recess bell sometimes, and like would come be found 15 minutes later, and be like, hey, you missed the bell. You
Yeah,
got to go to class. So the Pokemon trading card game, in addition to obviously Pokemon as a whole, is very special to me.
yeah.
Well, I played it. Zach and I together actually in middle school. As we got more towards middle school, we played the actual game and we got a better sense of it. And then I've dabbled in like the various online versions of it. For a long time, it's fallen out of my life, and Pokemon has
Mm,
too to an extent as well. I've
sure.
not really loved the Pokemon game since, well, really since X and Y.
Yeah,
Although I really had a great time with Sword and Shield as well. Um, But so I found this to be a reinvigoration of why I love Pokemon as a universe and why in the trading card game in particular. And it's been a daily fixture of my life for months at this point.
yeah,
I think it's tuned so well. I think it's just it's simple, it's satisfying, it foregrounds the appeal of the characters of the world of Pokemon, which to me are the greatest part. And so pulling this out of my pocket every day, opening a couple packs, playing a couple battles is just simply part of my routine now. And I don't think it's going to change anytime soon as there's more sets added, and it's just a constant fixture on my phone as somebody who really plays mobile games.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I'd say there's
moreover,
like maybe one mobile game a year that you like really enjoy,
yeah,
if that.
moreover, it has really warmed me back up to a series I've become so cynical about.
Interesting. Yeah,
And it's put a game like Legend ZA for more in my cone of
yeah,
vision instead of existing sort of on the periphery because I really do love Pokemon, and no matter how many games that Game Freak puts out that I don't personally vibe with, a game like this is a reminder that I'll always love this world very, very
yeah,
deeply. And I needed a game like this sometimes to be reminded of that.
yeah,
And it also just helps that it's super fun.
yeah,
So
yeah.
big ups to
Well,
Trading Card Game
the
Pocket.
special thing about Trading Card Game Pocket is it's really like 3 layers deep from Pokemon. Is the
Yeah.
Pokemon games are their own thing with a style of combat that has been, iterated on, but largely is the same over the course of 30 years. And then there's the trading card game, which of course has been around for a long time. Actually doesn't play the same as
No.
the Pokemon games, obviously, but it's its own well designed game that people love. And then Trading Card Game Pocket is a spin on that for
Yeah.
specifically for mobile, for faster games, for smaller deck sizes, all that stuff, in a way that must have been really difficult to get the balance down because you can't just port. I mean, obviously you can, and there's a fucking trading card game, a Pokemon trading card game on fucking Game Boy, but the fact that they rethought a game that has been designed, the trading card game has been designed in the way that it exists for decades. And they're like, well, no, for mobile, we need it to be a little bit different. That is why I'm not surprised that it took this long for it to come out. But it's also crazy that there hasn't been a Pokemon trading card mobile game since like the
Yes.
fucking dawn of humankind. Like that feels like something that should be obvious, but we finally got it in 2024, and by all accounts, it's a great game. It's not one I've tried myself yet, but I'm sure I would enjoy it. But I really respect it for finally scratching that itch that I think
Yeah.
people. It's interesting. People want a lot out of Pokemon. And the idea of an open world Pokemon game, an MMO Pokemon game, these things have been circulating for years and years and years, and Pokemon fans are always clamoring for stuff. And you'd assume that more people would have been asking for, like, where's the trading card game on mobile? But, like,
Right.
they really weren't, honestly. And I think it's kind of just like, well, if it hasn't happened yet, it's never going to happen. And then it did. And it came out, and it's fantastic, and you're really enjoying it. And a lot of people are talking about it, and my brother's playing it, and Sam's playing it, and Steven's playing it, and and they found their next Pokemon mobile hit, and
Yeah.
now Pokemon Go and Pokemon TCG Pocket. I mean, those are going to exist for another decade easily. There's like
Absolutely.
cornerstone mobile games now. So good on you to everyone involved in that for making it work in the way it did. My number
Your turn.
6 is Silent Hill 2. Uh,
Nice.
the Bloober Team remake that I think is one of the most exceptional artistic reimaginings of an older game, a classic game, an iconic game, one of the all-time great games. I haven't played the original myself, but of course that's like sort of the stigma around it that I've ever
Yeah.
seen. I think Silent Hill 2 remake proves to me why, as many games do, but specifically this game proves to me why there is a lot of value in reevaluating an older game for a modern audience. Resident Evil 2 did that in 2019. Metroid Prime Remastered did that just a few years ago. But Silent Hill 2, I think, follows in those footsteps of, and Resident Evil 4 last year as well, another game you and
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love, follows in those footsteps where Silent Hill 2 Remake does not replace Silent Hill 2. Silent Hill 2 still has its own charms, it has its own quirks and design decisions of its time that make it a special game worth playing, but video game design is something that evolves so acutely over time and is very difficult to cross appeal over generations. There are very few games that successfully exist over the course of generations and generations of people that that transcend that and like people agree. Like something like Pac-Man or Tetris. These are games that people love. But something like Silent Hill 2 or the older Resident Evil games, I find don't actually, for most people, hold up as well as the people that love them
Yeah.
would want to say that they do. But that doesn't mean that Silent Hill 2 is obviously a bad game by any stretch. But it also has ideas that are perennial and concepts and tones and styles and themes that deserve to be reinterpreted
Yeah.
within a modern framework to be presented to another generation of people that can appreciate those elements of the game. It's not the exact same design elements of the original game, but Silent Hill 2 is a game, this Bloober Team remake, that has some of the most impressive environment design I've ever seen in my life, some of the most impressive lighting and sound design I've ever seen in my life, and also tackles really fascinating themes from the original Silent Hill 2 story of grief and of interpersonal communication, and horror and isolation and these things that like are really psychologically and philosophically
Yeah.
interesting to tackle that fucking Resident Evil doesn't touch with a 20-foot fucking pole. I love Resident Evil games and they're great because they're camp and they have ridiculous lore and stuff.
Yeah.
But Silent Hill 2 is like it's like the fucking Alien of horror games where it's like this got theme to it. This got craft to it.
Yeah.
And I was shocked by how much I loved it. I love the modern Resident Evil games, and I think this stands up easily alongside Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil 4 remake and Resident Evil 7 games I love. And Bloober Team deserves all the credit in the world because it is a markedly different game. It is a markedly different creative direction from the original in its combat, in its pacing. They restructure puzzles, they restructure areas, they rewrite moments of dialogue. They directed some amazing performances.
Yeah.
It's a masterwork. I really do think it's one of the best horror games of all time, and it stands alongside Silent Hill 2, the original game, as one of the best horror games of all time. I think it's remarkable.
Yeah. I don't want to really get too deep into this because it's actually a great separate discussion about it. But I think about even a game like Tetris. I don't really get much out of the original Tetris.
Yeah.
For me, it's Tetris Effect. And I like this idea that you have of not just a remake that sits alongside its sequel, but an original game that has ideas that are more enduring than the game around them. Final Fantasy VII and Final Fantasy VII Remake are another great analog.
Absolutely.
So I think it's a really interesting idea to explore at another time, this notion of remaking a game and making it different, not just to update mechanics, but to get more at the heart of a set of ideas
Yeah.
that last longer than
Absolutely.
the product containing
Yeah.
them.
This is something like maybe we should record within like next few weeks. I mean, I think this is a really
Yeah.
salient topic right now.
My next game is Astrobot here at number 5. I'm not gonna talk.
Astro. Do a little
Yeah,
floss like Astro does.
I'm not gonna talk about it much because you've given, I think, so much astute commentary on it, and we've talked about the game many times in the past. So I'm gonna route people to those videos. But all I will say here,
Or root,
that I
depending where you're
haven't
from.
said before, is that Astrobot got me to check out a number of PlayStation series that I hadn't played before.
Yep.
Loco Roco, Ape Escape, and then just the other night I was playing Sly Cooper, which I played as a kid but I hadn't played since.
Yep.
On the back of Astrobot, I wanted to do that.
Let me know when you get to Intelligent Cube and Jumping Flash and the fucking classics. None of this nonsense you're jumping to.
Yeah, people people always are like, not well. The discourse around Astrobot is that the Astrobot is like this husk of things that were here before. I think Astrobot's better than all of them.
Yeah.
I think Astrobot's better than Ratchet and Clank. I think it's better than Ape Escape. I think it's superior.
Mm-hmm.
Full stop. In my heart, at least.
Yeah.
And so that is the last word I want to give on Astrobot here. The last word I'll give on this larger discourse and my thoughts on the game. It is so joyful. It is, to me, the PlayStation platforming series.
I think that's
it'll inspire people to go back. It'll remind people of what was in the past. But I think if you really put Astrobot next to any of these games and you go pound for pound, you go design aspect for design aspect, Astro wins. And I think that the notion you have that Asobi is only going to grow in their power is scary almost.
Yeah. Absolutely. Next up, number 5 for me. Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, baby. Fucking sliding in at the end of the year.
Well done.
What a fucking game. I love Indiana Jones. Specifically Raiders of the Lost Ark and what's the fucking third one? Oh, The Last Crusade. Are two movies that I really, really do adore. The Raiders March and Harrison Ford's performance. That series is something that's been iconic to me for a long time. And has been floundering for a long time. And I haven't had a lot of personal connection to for a long time. And Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, I think it's the best Indiana Jones thing. Yeah. I think it understands. I know this is ridiculous, and obviously it doesn't make sense to a certain degree. I think it understands Indiana Jones the character better than any of the fucking movies do. I think it understands the sense of adventure and exploration and puzzle solving and a reverence for history better than any of the movies do. And I was just continuously surprised by how many interesting design decisions this game made, because it would have been so easy to just straight down the line, Uncharted, Tomb Raider style Indiana Jones adventure game. But Machine Games said no. And they also said no to their own history, because it's not like a classic first-person shooter like the Wolfenstein games are. They're like, we're going to do something totally different that evokes the personality of... It's not just the aesthetic of Indiana Jones. It's the heart of Indiana Jones. The personality of the heroic person that loves history and is a fucking nerd about stuff. Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, in the way that it allows you to approach the environments in little different ways and explore things at your own pace, and ties in side content so naturally. It deserves to be studied. The ways in which it writes its characters and its central dynamic, but I think is the strongest central dynamic in the Indiana Jones series. And then also, alongside my boy Sam Witwer as Deacon St. John, who's the guy?
Troy Baker.
Sorry, Troy Baker as Indiana Jones is like maybe one of the top 5 video game performances of all time. I mean, it is a fucking like very rarely do I play a game and like almost every line get like, Jesus Christ, this guy's acting his little white tushy off. But Indiana Jones and the Great Circle is a fucking masterwork, and it's easily the best game that anything from an Xbox tangential studio has delivered. I mean, not actually ever, but pretty close to that. Like, it's in the upper echelon.
It's probably your favorite Xbox game.
Well, it depends on what you define, because I mean, like Ori and Minecraft and Overwatch and like they have subsumed a lot of my favorite games.
I guess the best way to put it is that Ori was a Microsoft game when it came out, right?
Yeah, Microsoft Game Studios
Okay,
published that. Yeah,
so this would be your second favorite Xbox Game Studios game that was released
under that umbrella
under
specifically.
that umbrella and not subsumed and retrospectively become part of that family. That makes sense.
Sure.
Well, does it make sense? Well, we don't
Yeah,
have to get into that.
yeah, because there's also like Rare's games and then like other Bethesda games that they acquired. Like I love Prey and I love
Yeah,
Skyrim and stuff. It's their whole fucking thing. But looking at my list here, the Ori
yeah,
games notwithstanding, and I guess Psychonauts 2, because Psychonauts 2 was put out after Rare's
true.
or not fucking Double Fine's acquisition. Where are they at, by the way? What the fuck? Um,
Good point.
regardless, it's a great fucking game. And
Yes,
it's,
yes, yes. We're getting
I love it.
consummated.
I love it.
My next game is The Legend of Zelda: Echoes of Wisdom. This is another one we went really in depth on, and I'm really, really proud of that discussion. So I'm gonna largely direct people that way. But what I'll say about Echoes of Wisdom here is that its ability to take the 2D Zelda format and infuse this open air philosophy in a way that, for me personally, was not only more novel than Tears of the Kingdom,
Yeah.
but better at recapturing the feeling I had playing Breath of the Wild for the first time, made this a truly special game for
Yep.
me. Also because the aesthetics of classic Hyrule are here. So it feels
Sure.
like a love letter to different eras of Zelda,
Yeah.
different Zelda developers, different philosophies, everything rolled into this little bundle that also foregrounds the character of Zelda and matches the gameplay to her thematic role in the narrative,
Totally.
the owner of the Triforce of Wisdom, in a way that I think is really smart.
Yeah.
Absolutely adore the game. And yeah, I really implore people to check out our review when we get a lot more in depth about Tucker's ransom note concept and
Yeah.
all these things. I think really make the game tick and make it, I think, deserving of, frankly, more praise than I think it got from the Nintendo community. I
I
think if
totally
this had
agree.
released at a different time, it would have been seen
Yeah.
if not a different light, a longer lasting
Sure.
light. So
Yeah.
I love this game. I
Yeah.
really, really love it.
And really, who we've got to give credit to is the Grezzo team,
Yeah.
who delivered their own creative vision in a Zelda series that has had spin-offs and remakes that other developers, dev teams have handled outside of the core EPD group, and like Aonuma and fucking Miyamoto and Fujibayashi and these guys that have been doing this for fucking decades.
Yeah.
But they made a mainline Zelda game
Yeah.
that is in the conversation of quality with all the other ones, and for the first time, like delivering an outside of EPD Zelda experience that does actually match that quality. I mean, like you're not going to put
Yeah.
fucking Triforce Heroes in that sense. Actually, well, no, Capcom
Minish
made
Cap.
fucking Minish Cap. I apologize, I forgot about that. But
And the Oracle
regardless,
games, I've not played those.
it's been forever, and maybe I shouldn't have said any of that because I actually forgot about all those games.
But no, I think that the point you're making is salient, which is to say, when Capcom made the Oracle games, but especially Minish Cap, they made a game on on the
Yeah.
bar of quality of what EPD was doing, and so
Well, EAD at
Grezzo
the
is.
time, but or actually, it might have been R&D, frankly.
Ooh, it probably would have. Well,
Not the mid 2000s. Yeah,
No, it says 2004 for Minish Cap, or maybe it was 2000. No, it was 2002.
We're supposed to be masters of this.
Point being, Grezzo is jockeying into that kind of position, and obviously the relationship between Grezzo is much more significant than the
Yeah.
relationship between Nintendo and Capcom.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And this
Banger.
is such a good
Banger
game,
town.
and it's such a good Zelda game that like
Yeah.
I only expect Grezzo and Nintendo's partnership to deepen and their quality to grow. Like I think whatever game they do next will be even better. So that's fucking exciting.
Also, I think that Conde is the best character that's been introduced to Zelda since,
Conde's great.
fuck, I don't know, Groose, maybe. I love Conde.
Fucking Groose. Yeah, great game. My next game is the one that really slid in under the wire for me at the end of the year. On a whim, and despite multiple instances of psychological warfare within myself,
Yeah.
started a 70-hour JRPG just for the fuck of it.
Yeah.
Yakuza Like a Dragon is an entry in a series that I've been terrified of, frankly.
Yeah.
That I've always wanted to be a part of, especially while seeing all the fucking clips from Infinite Wealth earlier this year that I'm like, I have to get into this series. And I bit the fucking bullet, and I bit it hard, because Yakuza Like a Dragon is one of my favorite RPGs of all time now. I was flabbergasted by just picking up on a whim a big ass game like this and immediately being sucked in. I played 48 hours of this game in a week. I literally used, no, that's not the word I'm looking for. I literally played Yakuza Like a Dragon.
Yeah, out of a 7-day period.
It was like a full-time job for me.
Yeah.
But it's because every time Yakuza Like a Dragon it's a very unique game. Because for those of you who don't know, the Yakuza series, obviously long running, this is the 7th mainline entry in it, they're beat 'em up games.
Yeah.
And this is a turn-based JRPG. But it's also kind of not. And I think that's what's really, really interesting about it, is you're not standing in a line. Like, here's a fucking enemy, like, sending attacks, like, out at them, whatever. Like, that's usually how turn-based RPGs work. Or your character goes shoop, shoop, and, like, teleports back. In Yakuza Like a Dragon, you are in the streets of Japan, and you are a bunch of guys with objects around you that have collision. Yeah. And so it's crazy. It's really hard to describe this, because it makes the turn-based JRPG in nature that structurally is reasonably traditional feel so different, because you have to account for the fact that you got to run over to a guy and hit him. And so if that means that there's an enemy between you and the guy you're trying to hit, then the enemy can, like, block you because you just ran into them. Sure. And they'll just fucking punch you in the face and be like, no, and you don't get to do your attack because you're on the streets of fucking Japan and, like, you're in an alleyway and it's tight. Or if there's a cone or a bike or something, you can run over there, just pick it up and hit them with it. And there's, like, physics, and they'll fall on the ground, and while they're on the ground, you can quickly have another character go over and fucking hit them while they're down, and it does more damage, and it's fucking hilarious. And so from a combat level, it's really snappy. It is a turn-based JRPG, but it feels so different because you have to have this, like, spatial awareness of a beat-em-up game, because it's using all the physics and map design of previous of Yakuza games. But then also, pour one out for fucking Ichiban Kasuga. He's fine. He's still alive as far as I know. Who is one of the best video game characters of all time. His name, Ichiban, means number one in Japanese. And he is the stereotypically goofy anime protagonist with a fucking heart of platinum. This guy skips fucking gold. He goes straight for platinum. He's the best guy ever. He loves his friends. He has the heart of a warrior. He believes in helping people. So every time you do a side quest as Ichiban, you are fucking in that shit. He's so nice. Everyone likes him. He goes up on the street and immediately people are pouring their hearts out to him because he's just the most approachable guy ever. And unlike so many JRPGs where you're just this fucking silent protagonist, you're the fucking hero of legend, you are a guy, you started this game homeless. I don't know if you know that. Ichiban Kasuga, this is a spoiler for the first few hours of Like a Dragon.
Yeah.
He goes to jail for 18 years for something he didn't do. And all the while on the inside, he's like, this was the right thing to do for the people that matter to me. He gets out. The guy that he looked up to most, who's basically his father figure, shoots him in the chest. And he wakes up in a homeless camp in another city he's never been to before, and has to work his way up from being fucking homeless on the street. You have no money. You have to scrounge under fucking vending machines to get cash for the first part of this game. And the people around you are homeless, and so you build this community with the homeless people and with the prostitutes of this area, but you have the fucking heart of the work because you're Ichiban fucking Kasuga, and
that's awesome.
It is so fucking unique. And then you gather a group of friends that all have, like, their own reason for being there, and you get entrenched in, like, large scale warfare and all this fucking stuff. But it's all through fucking Ichiban, who's such a compelling character, and you get these reveals over and over again throughout the course of the story, because it has this, like, soap opera, like, building up tension, reveal at the end of the chapter, and you go into the next thing.
Yeah.
I think this game is so special, man. I mean, structurally, gameplay-wise, it's rock solid. They've been building on these foundations forever, but they also made, like, a good turn-based RPG for the first time. And they did a new character for the first time. Kiryu
Yeah.
Kazuma had been the protagonist for literally 20 years of this fucking series, 15 years. And then they took massive risk by restarting new gameplay structure, new guy. And they fucking knocked it to Jupiter with an original premise that also fuck, it plays on the tropes of JRPGs because Ichiban loves Dragon Quest. He grew up playing Dragon Quest. And so the reason this is a turn-based RPG is because that's how he sees the battles in his mind.
Oh, wow,
And
that's really cool.
and all the enemies are just people on the street, but he sees them in his mind as wackier characters. And so they'll like you start off and it's just like people like thugs on the street, and they'll like transform and they're like a bigger guy with like crazy hair or whatever. It's because he sees the world in that way. And I mean, spoiler, but like the final boss, he puts on armor and the final boss turns into a dragon, and because he is the fucking hero of legend, he sees himself as a hero. The class of everyone's got like doctor or fucking bartender or whatever is their classes. His class is hero, because Ichiban Kasuga is he's the hero of everyone. Everyone loves him. I mean, this is it's a remarkable game. I'm
cool.
Fucking flabbergasted of how many unique design decisions, story decisions. It's fucking masterpiece, and I can't wait to get more into the series and start playing Zero. I like that game quite a bit, but it's not the same. And then I'm gonna get to Infinite Wealth eventually, and I assume that's just gonna continue that. Because there's also a fucking full Mario Kart mode in this game.
Huh.
And
yeah, these games are amazing. What you said to me about the story has actually really, really intrigued me. I had no idea about any of that. That's awesome.
And by the way, my first Yakuza game, didn't know about all the lore. Totally not necessary, because it's about Ichiban, and Ichiban doesn't know all this shit. He doesn't know, like, there are characters that come back. They're like people on your party. Technically, they were in previous games, but the game introduces you to you. They introduces them to you like they're just whoever the fuck, because Ichiban doesn't know them, and so it is a perfect starting place for all this.
Okay, my next game, my number 3 game, we're into the home stretch.
Fucking cock, dude.
Also comes from RGG. Because my next game, Super Monkey Ball Banana Rumble. I didn't even know that they could do it still. I didn't know that they could come back and make a truly excellent Monkey Ball game. This is the first new Monkey Ball game since Banana Splits, which I think was 2014. The first new Monkey Ball game. Monkey Ball game since Banana Splits on Vita. And since then, we've only gotten remakes of varying quality. You get Banana Blitz HD, which is not particularly good, and you get Banana Mania, which is I liked a lot, but a far cry from how those games were originally. It's obviously a remake of 1 and 2 in Deluxe. Banana Rumble is like them saying, okay, fuck it. For once,
you win.
We gotta lock in. For once, we're gonna lock in with one of these. And they did. And the result is a game that understands that good physics and player expression lies at the heart of Monkey Ball. And the solution to modernizing it isn't to give you the opportunity to have shortcuts to jump over obstacles as you can in those remakes, but instead to say, let's curate a new move in this sort of dash move, the spin dash.
Yeah.
That
crazy that they never did that before.
Yeah.
The series been going for fucking 20 years.
That opens up new physics-based opportunities to give it that modern feel, have a bunch of assist options for people who need them, and just create this very scalable, very interesting, very physics-led Monkey Ball experience. Not only is it phenomenal on a core level, in the months since release, they've continued to update the game with new and significant modes. I am number 22 in the world right now of in the One Life Challenge mode. I forget what stage I died on. It was somewhere in the high 50s, if I remember, out of 100 stages in the game. I've found this to be a continual comfort and pleasure to return to, and it's a game that I hold in equal esteem with Monkey Ball Deluxe, the Xbox version, which is the best. The PS2 version they fucked up, like completely. It's just night and day fucked up. It is on the quality of what Monkey Ball was originally, and I think it is a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful game. Totally loved it. It was battling for Game of the Year all year. I still return to it often. I will continue to return to it often as I keep checking off little objectives and little challenges.
Yeah.
I really, really hope and think that we'll get another.
Totally. Okay, absolutely.
Just give me another in this same engine and do it in 2 years' time.
Yeah.
Bang.
I mean, I got great news for you.
Yeah.
You know what studio loves? To put out games that have a really nice clip and budgets things properly and releases a bunch of sequel stuff?
Yeah.
They're
Amusement Vision.
nice. Nice. Little classic reference there. I don't think that was relevant in our lifetimes, but nice job. Cheers.
Cheers.
It's fucking Concord time, baby. Concord is my number 3 favorite game of the year. And now, I will preface this by saying I don't think it's even anywhere close to the third best game I played this year.
Sure.
I also don't know if it would have been this high if everything hadn't gone down the way it did.
Yeah.
Because the truth of the matter is that Concord is a special game to me more than basically anything in my life. That sounds fucking ridiculous. Then any game this year, I don't know. Let's tone down the superlative just a little bit.
People get what you mean. They get what you mean.
I don't like multiplayer games that much, especially not ones that are like round based. I like a co-op game. I like a fighting game every once in a while, but outside of basically just Overwatch, I've never really gotten into a round based multiplayer game significantly.
Yeah.
And I didn't with Concord either, because this game was canceled after 10 days and removed from the store. And then they shut down the studio and fired everyone involved in the game. But I think that nobody really actually believes that I like this game as much as I did. Because a lot of things I say about it are like diametrically opposed to why most people think this is one of the worst games ever made. Well, that's a little bit of an exaggeration, but like, why is one of the biggest
categorical failure is,
yes,
I think.
Yes. On a design level, on an art level, and obviously on a financial and critical level, that's definitely true. But I mean it. When you and I and Bo are watching the reveal trailer of this game at the summer presentation, and they show the gameplay and they show the characters, and I'm sitting on the edge of my seat. I'm like, totally, this is very interesting to me aesthetically. This is very interesting to me. I'm curious about these characters. And then we finished up, we upload the reaction. I start scripting my own thing. Like, why do I think this game is interesting?
Right.
I make a video about it. I start to get to know some of the team members. I play the beta. I play a lot of the beta. I think it's really cool, but it has some issues. And then the game comes out. I buy the physical copy of it. I put it in, and I played more Concord in a shorter time period than I did Yakuza in a longer time period.
Right.
Because even though this game was available for, I think, 11 days total, I only had access to it for like 6 of those days because we went to fucking PAX West. And so I couldn't play the game. And I still managed to play 50 fucking hours of Concord in 5-6 days, whatever it was.
Yeah.
Because it just worked for me. I need to explore on a little bit deeper level what... obviously, I can't go play the game, so I can't like fucking test it anymore. But why the movement and physics and gunplay of Concord worked for me in the places that other FPS games don't. I do not like playing Halo. It makes me upset. Because I do not like how the gunplay feels. It feels floaty. I don't like the way that the guns reload. I don't like the force feedback. Like, it just does not feel right to me. And that's not like... I can't like actually like say that like with definitive clarity. It's just like... It's just a reaction. But for Concord, it did work. And the ways in which each of the characters had their own weapons that I thought really diversified things quite a bit. The way it played into the things that I liked a lot about Overwatch, which is this goofy cast of characters that all come together and have their own personalities. And the premise of Concord, that much like what Exoprimal did for me last year, of telling a story within the context of this, a high production value story within the context of this round-based multiplayer game, it was everything I wanted. And what frustrates me most is that I seem to be alone in that. Everything about this game that works so well for me, from the characters who I really liked, like 80% of them, to the music, which by Daniel Pemberton, who did the fucking Spider-Verse score, which I think the score is phenomenal for Concord. I thought the lore was really interesting. I thought the art direction was really interesting. The map design I was consistently blown away by. No one else thought was even good. Like I was so off the boat for this one. What the fucking phrase is? Like I was so on the other side. Off the consensus, whatever. And I don't know how I really feel about that. But I do know that I did like it. And I wasn't fucking lying. I wasn't making it up. There's no horseshit. I sat there and played this game for like fucking 5 hours a day for a week straight.
Here's a good way to put it. Firewalk made this game with the intention of everybody who plays it feeling like you did.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
They didn't make the game to be bad.
Yeah.
So it's not correct to look at Concord and say that Concord is a bad game.
Mm-hmm.
People just didn't fall into the band of the frequency band Firewalk was working at. Here's the thing, Tucker. You got from Concord the intended experience.
Yes.
It's not your fault or bad or wrong that you and just not many other people got it.
Yeah, true.
In fact, it's by thinking the game sucks categorically, all these people out in the world, they didn't get the intended experience from Concord.
Yeah, sure.
And it's not to devalue their criticism because I am no fan of the game myself.
Yeah.
However, I just think that you got to always remember that you got the Concord experience.
I did. Yes.
And
yeah, and I'll rewatch like the little developer things that are talking about oh, this is the intent of the why we're designing things this way and the ways in which you build your team and balances out like little buffs across like everyone who's playing different characters. And I'm like, yeah, that was good. I like that. Good job. That was smart. But then, of course, the game doesn't exist anymore, and it is. Again, it is a part of why I'm so passionate about this game, to where I have it this high up on my list because it got delisted. I mean, there's a solid shot that if this game was still available and dead, frankly, in terms of player count, that I would have fallen off of it a couple months ago and been like, it was a great time, but it's just kind of existing there in the background the way I don't particularly care about Overwatch anymore. But I got the fucking morphine injection of Concord, and I never had the opportunity to tire of it because they removed it. And so I have this condensed fucking peanut butter to diamond Concord memory of 1 week in heaven that I spent with this fucking game.
Yeah, and it should be at this high on the list because it got pulled. Because we talk a lot about it, we've referenced in this video the importance again of the conditions under which a game is made.
Yeah.
And I think both you and I would look at the budget of Concord and look at the head count of Concord and look at the way it came together and say that it was an awfully managed project.
Yeah.
However, that doesn't mean that people didn't put their lives into it for years. And so the penalty for making it a miscalculation to this degree shouldn't be shut down and erasure from memory and turn into the butt of the joke. There should be someone that's there to chronicle and remember it.
Yeah.
So that's the role you fill in, and that adds an importance to the game for you, and adds an importance to your continued praise of the game.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that it's a very important and understandable and necessary thing for it to be this high, in part because it doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, totally.
So
yeah, I mean it's like someone watched their favorite indie band. Indie is like not exactly 1-to-1, but watched their favorite indie band perform once, and then the band got disbanded, and you couldn't go buy that performance or the recording on DVD or not DVD, CD or whatever. But if someone told you that like their favorite not album, live performance, but concert. That's the word I'm looking for. Their favorite.
Sorry.
I'm sorry.
It's such an obvious word. I didn't know that's what you were looking for.
If someone told you that their favorite concert of all time was like the one time in the 80s that they got to see this band and they were with their friends and no one else really got it, you wouldn't be like, well, you're wrong. And like you can't think that because it's not available still. And because other people didn't like it at the time. And now I've got that for Concord. And I don't know how I'm going to feel about this game in fucking 20 years. Who the hell knows? But I at least have this for now, and I have this multiple videos worth of proof of me praising the game in multiple areas.
You have it forever because you can't reevaluate Concord, and nobody can do that.
Yes, this is true.
You're always going to love Concord in a very specific way, and I think that's a very novel and can't be replicated.
Yeah, irreplicable.
Yeah, I can't say that word.
But yep,
I mean, I
like
took an oath.
Concord.
Took an oath not to say that word.
Number 2.
Okay, Tucker. This video is so long, so I'm allowed to fuck around a little bit. Here's the reality.
Yeah, sure. I don't give
My
a shit.
my number
I don't have
two.
nothing going on today.
My number 2 is my number 1 game. My number 1 spot is a phenomenon.
Whatever, man.
My number 2 spot for number 1 game of the year is Indiana Jones and the Great Circle.
Oh, nice.
Now, I feel like I've said my piece in this game, and I really would like to invite people to go watch a review of the game.
Yeah.
Especially if you've gotten to this point in the video.
Yeah, of course.
You're a hardcore enough BLB fan that I want you to just go over there.
Yeah.
Or you've already heard me talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
So partially out of the interest of time, partially out of the interest of not having anything new to say since that review, I'm going to mostly direct people there, but what I will say is that you should go watch the review.
Is this you fucking around? Oh, okay.
No. Indiana Jones, when you step away from the analytical context, when you step away from the sort of praises we've been heaping on games here, all praises that I have of Indiana Jones and I share in that video, I simply love this game so much because it is a testament to the fact that games can be cinema. And we have this conversation quite often about the role and relationship between games and cinema. And when I play Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, obviously it's very gamified. It's very systems-led. It's a very systems-led game. But in the main, the reason I like it is because it just feels like a big interactive Indiana Jones movie. And I feel that even more is the case here than if people might say that a game like Uncharted is an interactive movie.
Yeah.
This is literally, to me, an interactive Indiana Jones movie.
I see what you're saying, yeah.
And I ran an Indiana Jones fan club as a child. Nobody joined. It was only me. I took a rock and I painted Indiana Jones on it, and I would set it down.
The guy? You painted the whole, or like his face, or like a hat? Like what?
Well, I mean, I was like 7, so it was a crude image, you know?
A crude image, yes.
Not crude in a sexual way, just crude in how it depicts Indiana Jones. I've loved Indiana Jones since I was a kid.
Crude stiff.
And and if Indiana Jones never had another movie, but every couple of years we got a game like this,
yeah,
an interactive Indiana Jones movie, I'd be so happy. So, it was everything that I knew it would be,
yeah,
and far more.
Yeah.
It was many things I didn't think it could be. And we elaborate on that in the review. I love it.
2 quick questions. Number 1, is it your favorite Machine Games game?
Yeah.
Okay. Number 2, would you rather a sequel to this or Wolfenstein 3 next?
I would rather have Wolfenstein 3 next.
Yeah.
The reason, and that might sound contradictory, but I think when I play Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, they rubber stamped it. We came out swinging. Our first whack at this vision is the best whack at the vision.
Sure.
And now we can do it again, and we can do more and more great games on this level, and maybe find ways to improve it, get the pace tighter and things like that. There are places where the game does sag.
Yeah.
However, I just think that Wolfenstein 2 is such a masterpiece as well, and it just really invites one more. The trilogy needs to be wrapped up, particularly because it's lingering on Youngblood, which is a game that is just subpar in my opinion.
Yeah.
So I really would take Wolfenstein 3 over Indy 2 in a heartbeat. However, the tea leaves seem to be that Disney wants more of these games.
Of course, so. Yeah. Well, and that's the exciting thing about either of these options is I think I also agree I would prefer a Wolfenstein 3 to be next because I do think that they changed so much going into Great Circle that going back to Wolfenstein, much like the 2D Mario team going back after Super Mario Maker to make a traditional 2D Mario game, they have so many things they could learn structurally, pacing wise, mechanics wise, level design wise that they could apply to a Wolfenstein 3. And I mean, I don't know, probably make it a better game, but like maybe make it a kind of different game from what the other 2 Wolfenstein games were. But I also think that it'd be a real shame if this is the only one of this kind of game we ever get. There's so many great games that then get a sequel that's even better. And they killed it so hard here that I think there's more room to improve. I'm
I
like,
understand what you
on the
mean.
first time you did this good. What the fuck are you gonna do with your second time?
Yeah, yeah.
Now that you don't have to like figure this out for the first time, that you can like think about it and polish it and like, man. Um, but I'm here for whatever they do next. So
Absolutely.
good shit.
Your
Uh,
number 2 game.
Number two, um, Metaphor Rifantatio is my number two because I think this is probably the best turn-based JRPG I've ever played.
Pause for a moment. Pause for a moment.
Yeah,
Just
what's
think
up?
for a second. Think about this. Your
Yeah.
number 3 game is Yakuza. Your number 2 game is Metaphor. Would you have ever said in a million years that 2 massive consequential JRPGs would be this high on your list?
No, absolutely not. I mean,
Yeah.
the only other turn-based JRPG non-Pokemon that I
Yeah.
ever loved before this is Final Fantasy VI. It's a game I really, really enjoy.
Sure.
But even when we talked about that in 2020, no, 2021. Wait, when was Sephiroth announced? I played it right after Sephiroth announced. That was 2020.
2020.
Yeah. We talked about it in 2020. It was probably in my top 10. I don't think it was in even my top 5 though.
Sure.
So yeah, this is a very big surprise.
Yeah.
But Metaphor Refutatio is a special game because I think it does all the things I want out of an RPG. Right. I'm not a big turn-based like battle fan, even
Yeah.
Pokemon, which is a series I love, but Metaphor makes it so snappy in the responsiveness of the controls and in the fluidity of the animation. You can almost play it like it's an action game. That's the thing that really surprised me about it, is I was switching between my characters so fast and like reacting to like the enemies' animations and stuff, and the animations are getting like the camera's like flowing between all the characters as they like pose up and then go into their attack animation, that I like was almost playing it like that. So I think it really, snappiness wise, really fixed like the slowness and the weight that I usually and the methodical nature that I usually have out of, or usually don't like out of turn-based RPGs. And then it also creates a really compelling world with an interesting cast of characters who are all very well voice acted. They're very well paced out across the course of the story, which is something that a lot of JRPGs have a problem with. Is like, you know, the last 1 to 2 characters get added to your party, they're like coming out near the end, and you're like, you know, I've got my group. Like, I don't really want to bother with these guys. Narratively, they don't feel particularly impactful. They fix all those issues. They loosen up the time structure a little bit that has been in place in the other Persona games, which certainly helped me. They added difficulty options that allowed me to play at a little bit faster pace that really helped me get through it and experience it in the way that I wanted to. And then to top it all off, I also think it has one of the most fascinating thematically video game stories ever told. And I also think it has one of the best art directions in a video game ever. It's no secret that this fucking Atlas goddamn team can art direct a game. I think that Persona 5 is probably one of the top 5 art direction games of all time. And not in terms of like my personal preference, but although I do love it, but just in terms of people being like, Jesus Christ. But I think Metaphor's better, at least for me personally, because it draws inspiration, like we were talking about Pentiment earlier, from things that games do not traditionally draw inspiration from. This is a game whose art direction is based on like a fucking old library and like the like Da Vinci sketches and like fucking Hieronymus Bosch fucking paintings from the Victorian era and shit. What are you saying?
It's singular, but it builds on a game like Persona 5 in
definitely.
the type of flourish, but it's singular in what that flourish is visually, and I think that's really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And to top that all off, I mean, Persona 5 was great because of all the hard angles and hard colors where you're going from black to red, and it's like you know, striking you with like in a more specific way, ransom note letters and stuff like all this stuff. But Metaphor, in its art direction, is much more about sketchbook and about watercolor and softly transitioning characters from their like real models to like the painterly like little profile icons they have and stuff, and like the menus are a play on the that painting, the Leonardo da Vinci painting, where you like how far you can I was gonna say how far you can flex your arms painting, or I don't fucking know, but Vitruvian Man, yes, that's the correct name. So it's just totally unique in that. And it's got this booming orchestral score with amazing choral performances. Uh, and the battle theme is this guy fucking rapping in an unknown language. Like, whoa, this is crazy. But then it also is a game, and I don't really know how much you know about this, Abram, but it is a game about the power of storytelling.
I know it only in a conceptual sense. And I'm
Yeah.
excited to experience that myself.
Yeah. So I'll just give you the basic,
Yeah.
basic element of what makes this special is you start off the game, and of course you name your protagonist, the unnamed protagonist, who I recommend naming Will because I think it makes the power. That's his canon name, but I actually think it makes the story a little bit better.
Okay.
But before you name your protagonist, which you do in all sorts of fucking Dragon Quests and whatever the fucks, before you name your protagonist, the game asks you what your name is, and you as a player, and you become a part of the game because they consistently refer to the fact that you are someone outside of this experiencing this story. And they use that thematically with
Wow.
in the like there's a Velvet Room in the Persona games where Igor's fucking combining personas and shit, which is fine. But there is the Velvet Room version in Metaphor is called Academia. It's a place of learning. It's where a character based on Thomas More talks to you about philosophy, and you read from this book that is utopia. Is what would the ideal world be? And in this world that has fucking dragons and monsters and all this nonsense, they look at this book as the idealized world that will never actually be real. And that book is about our real world and about how, races of people live together and there's democracy and how we like help the sick and things like that. And it paints the real world as a fantasy. And it talks about the power of storytelling and the power of like, even if a utopia is not actually achievable, the idea of pursuing it is still noble and still something worthwhile because it challenges us to improve ourselves. And then it plays with fucking politics, and it's a game that was released around the fucking election cycle, and it's about an election and like all this stuff. It is, I mean, it's a really special.
Wow.
Way again, much like a dragon, like playing with storytelling and playing with your expectations of these things.
Yeah. I need to play it.
Yeah.
Like I have an internal burning to play it. I have it now. I just got it for Christmas, which was really nice of my parents. I've just not put it in yet.
Yeah.
I'll do that today.
Cheesing.
I really, really want to play it. And I think I'm going to play it on. You play it on the easiest mode, right? You could beat it. In
well,
30
there's
hours.
the easiest mode, and then there's the I don't remember what it's called, but there's a mode where it's easy difficulty, but also if you die, you can just revive your characters. Like you don't have to restart the whole battle, and that's what I did. Yeah. And I played through it with doing almost every side quest. It took me about 45 hours.
And there's that like God mode, but then there's an easy mode.
Yeah.
And then a normal mode.
Yes.
Yeah, because I think I would play not on the easiest where you can't die, but I play the one right above it.
Yeah. And with a guy that doesn't do side quests such as yourself, I think you could probably get through it in 30 something hours.
Yeah, that sounds great. Yeah,
love the game.
Man, wow.
I really think it should have won Game of the Year because of that. Because I think it is. It really is like The Last of Us 2 of this year, in my opinion. Like this is going to be like storytelling wise going to be like a benchmark for the medium, in terms of using interactive storytelling and the growth of the industry to tell a story that nothing like this has ever been told before.
Yeah.
I really think it's special.
I'll get that queued up.
And you'll love fucking Heisman. You'll love Basilio. Like you're gonna, dude, fucking Fidelio. You're gonna love these goddamn characters.
My number one, Tucker, like I said, is a phenomenon. My number one is 6 games together.
Oh, yeah.
Played back to back to back to back without playing anything else in between over the course of a month of my life. That is the entire Devil May Cry series.
Including 2, which is a game you don't like.
Well, this is what's interesting about it. I like Devil May Cry 2 fine.
Okay, sure.
It's like pretty objectively, if you want to, I think it's one of the worst games ever when you account for the quality a game should be, if that makes sense. Like there are truly terrible video games out there.
Yeah.
But Capcom making a sequel to Devil May Cry, the fact that it is as
Yeah,
bad
yeah,
as it
yeah.
is like it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
But the reason that this phenomenon is my game of the year is that I truly don't think that there is a cooler video game series than Devil May Cry for me personally.
Mm.
I absolutely am captivated by Dante and Nero and Trish and all of these characters and Virgil and everybody. I've always been interested in Devil May Cry basically my whole life. I never had access to them as a kid. I sort of admired it from a distance. The first one I actually could get my hands on was Devil May Cry 5, and I loved it. I played a little bit of 1, a little bit of 3 at various points and couldn't really do it. But this year, I don't know what came over me, but there's some almost like biblical call from God that said to me, "You must now play every Devil May Cry game in order without stopping."
Yes.
And I did. Every single one of them.
When you get a call from
One,
on high, you don't
I
deny
did.
that shit.
And to me, what's so amazing about Devil May Cry is that it's you made a comparison earlier, and we use Pikmin as a benchmark here a lot of times talking about series on BLB. This
Yeah.
notion that you can have a series and multiple games in that series offer something different.
Yeah.
I had this experience of seeing that in real time, back to back to back, seeing the progression, the way that I think the games largely do get better
Mm-hmm.
as you go along, with rare exception. Um, but seeing how there's different visions underpinning all of them.
Hmm.
It was a really fun analytical challenge to play them all and see what's changed, what stayed the same, and how the influence of different people and different time periods of development and
Yeah.
in the context of the industry around each Devil May Cry entry really inform them. Obviously, people know that Devil May Cry 1 began as Resident Evil 4 and then
Yeah.
became its own project. To see Devil May Cry 3 as Itsuno's response, he said that it was like a weight on his conscience that Devil May Cry 2 was what it was, so he came back as like, we're gonna make 3, and
Mm-hmm.
3 is maybe the greatest action game ever. But then you see 4 and how 4 is really a response to Capcom's downturn in that era, and it's a
Hmm.
easier game, it's a more mainstream game, and then you get 5 and this amazing, amazing game in Devil May Cry 5. One of my favorite games ever, period. It's a top 10 game for me, probably. Um, I just, I found myself falling in love with the soundtracks and the way that the game has this punk feel to it. Punk and rock, and it's paranormal and it's stylish, and I mean that in every sense. The cutscene direction, particularly in 3 and 5, is unlike anything
Hmm.
I've ever experienced, period. The opening cutscene of Devil May Cry 5 set to Devil Trigger is my favorite cutscene in the game ever, and it's unto itself a beautiful encapsulation of the bravado and the off the wall amalgam of ideas and styles that encapsulates and creates Devil May Cry. And to have all of this be paired alongside a combat system that forces you to learn a skill is very interesting.
Hmm.
And I was talking on the Daydream cast about Devil May Cry 1,
Mm-hmm.
and I made this point that I'm not very good at Devil May Cry. I'm not playing these games on easy, but I'm certainly not playing them on Dante Must Die difficulty. I have a shallow set of combos that I use regularly. As I got into especially 5, I felt a lot more confident and
Did
a
you
lot
replay
better
5
than
this year, by the way?
I did. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, I didn't know that. Hmm.
Um, what I said to the guys on the show was, to me, playing Devil May Cry is like being in the shallow end of the pool, or standing, or a better way to put it, standing on the beach and loving standing on the beach and walking in the water and enjoying the waves and the tide along the shore, but looking out and knowing that there's an ocean there,
Hmm.
and that
Hmm.
there's and that there are people that can explore it
Sure.
and know it better than I do, and I can aspire to get there and
Oh,
aspire to
oh, I see. I
wade out
see.
further. But
Yeah,
even
yeah.
if I don't get there, even if I end up staying around my waist, I can love and be in awe of what people did in that deeper
Sure.
end, in those darker
Sure.
waters. And so to hone my skills across the arc of all of the games was rewarding personally. To fall in love with these characters and understand them was rewarding. and to really finally turn the key in the lock of this genre, of this character action genre that I always liked but couldn't grapple with
Mm-hmm.
fully, was so rewarding to me. And after I beat all these games, I went back and I replayed Bayonetta 1 and I found a deeper appreciation for that game, um, because I had played it before and I'd played all the Bayonettas before, but I was button mashing, and I don't feel like I am anymore.
Yeah.
And so I really feel like I found something in myself in my gaming skill set that I didn't have. And it's all thanks to Devil May Cry. And I highly implore people to play at least DMC5.
Yeah.
I think it's just an essential game, and man, I love these. It's the sort of thing where I've got one song from DMC in my workout mix, and whenever that comes on, I'm at the gym and I'm like, fuck, maybe I should go home and play DMC again.
Yeah.
I just think it's playing through the whole series this year was the same phenomenon as when I played through Halo,
Oh yeah.
all
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
2022 or whatever. I just find these series that speak to me very, very deeply.
Sure.
So,
Absolutely.
absolutely.
uh, my number one game is Lorelei and the Laser Eyes, which is, I don't know, it's kind of a fucking sicko game, isn't it?
It certainly is.
Lorelei and the Laser Eyes is a puzzle game, but it's a puzzle game in the way that Resident Evil is a puzzle game, in which you need to solve puzzles to continue exploring.
Yeah.
It is framed like a top-down fixed camera perspective horror game from like PS1, and it utilizes this like really fascinating black and white aesthetic with touches of like a, I don't know, like a fucking rose red. That's really visually striking.
Yes.
But what it really does is fold in on itself like 70 times. It's a game about puzzles, and it's a game about learning the history of this place that you're at, and the people that were here, and the histories that led to it being the way that it is. But all of these are framed to like a couple of people that are really into like film history and really into like Italian history and things. And so you are doing puzzles where it requires a lot of real world knowledge. You need to know the fucking phases of the moon. You need to know how to read Latin. You need to know how to like, you know, balance fucking scales. I don't know. I'm just pulling shit out my ass at this point, but it's really fascinating in that way. And like, no two puzzles in this game feel similar because there's a lot of like different kind of mathematics and different kinds of history and culture things that you need to have familiarity with in order to explore. But it also is another game that plays with video games and as a medium in really interesting ways. Yeah. Partway through the game, you unlock this set of floppy disks, and the floppy disks you can go put into a computer, and if you put in the right code, you could get to play these little smaller games within the game. That then you get, like, if you explore those enough, you get a little hint that you can then apply to a puzzle, and then again it starts to fold in on itself. Sure. And like a single hallway that is right there at the beginning of the area, you might not be able to open until fucking 80% of the way through the game, because not because you couldn't, but because you haven't like learned enough of this game to know how to open it. Like it's sometimes it's not even clear what the puzzle is. Like the game's
understanding the language of the game.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and it, I would say it starts off simpler, but that's not even really true. It starts off and it's pretty fucking esoteric. But the thing that really makes this a special game for me, and honestly, as I'm talking about it, I think the other three games I just talked about, Concord, Metaphor, and Yakuza, I think this order might shift a little bit because I think those games are a little bit more impactful. But regardless, I'm talking about it all up here. But I have a very unique experience with Laura and the Laser Eyes, in that if I was playing this at any point in my life other than the exact point in which I was playing it, I would have played it very, very differently. And that is because I started this game on the plane to my trip to Italy. I've never been out of the country before. I was just sitting there on the fucking plane. It's gonna be like a 13-hour flight or whatever. And I'm like, I just bought this. Like, I'll give it a try. And because of that, and because I was in Italy where I didn't have cell phone reception, I didn't even really have access to the internet, I could not look up a guide for this game. And so I had to fucking teach myself this game, and it drove me bonkers. But it's the kind of puzzle satisfaction that I usually don't give myself because I'm so interested in moving on to the next thing. But I didn't have a choice in the world that I played Lorelei and Laser Eyes in, and I was playing this in the back of the car as we're driving from fucking Rome to Timbuktu. I don't know where we went. And I'm playing this on the plane, and I'm staying up late at night, and like also taking lots of physical notes. Writing down in this journal these fucking esoteric symbols and Roman numerals and all this stuff and phases of the moon and shadows and film reels and shit. And it's an experience unlike anything I've ever had because I've never been encouraged to take physical notes for puzzles before. And I've also never been pushed to do... this is a hard puzzle game. To do this kind of puzzles without a guide almost entirely. So it really created a unique moment in my life that I'm sure I'll remember for a very long time. Because I was able to experience this game within a situation that pushed me to resonate with it on a deeper level. Because again, if I'd played this when I was at home, I would have just looked up a guide for basically everything.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just a really, really interesting moment in my life that meant it hit me in the right place, in the right time. And also, Simogo, the team that made it, they made Sayonara Wild Hearts, a game that was, I think, on both of our lists a couple of years ago. We both really loved that game. So similar to, what we're talking about with Neon White and Donut County and these other creators that are just can completely flip-flop. This is crazy. They came from the same studio. I think it's really goddamn cool. But it's also, out of all these games, the hardest game I would have recommended to other people. I like it a lot, but it's a sicko fucking game. You gotta be touched in the head to really appreciate this game, and I am.
I tried playing Professor Layton once, and I got stumped on the second puzzle of the game. So I think that this is a little bit out of my depth.
Are you serious?
The puzzle is like, fucking, this guy walks out of his house and he goes left. Where does he end up? And I'm like, I don't know.
You don't have a sense of direction or object permanence.
I don't know where he could land.
Did we do it?
We did it. Tucker, I think this might be the longest BLB video ever.
No. Well, for the two of us, probably. But, I mean, we've streamed longer than this in the past.
Sure.
And also, we did the every Best Picture nominees ranked video that's like 7 hours long.
Sorry. I meant gaming video.
Yeah.
I think it's the longest gaming video.
Yeah, probably. We're at 3:46 now, yeah.
Holy fucking balls. I'm so hungry. I gotta tell you, I'm so hungry.
I never ate this morning. You were eating before... You greedy bastard. I saw you eating...
It's fucking lunchtime. It's 1:40 in the afternoon
It's
now.
breakfast time for me. I got out of my bed, I walked down these stairs, and I sat in this chair. I do this all for you guys. I also feel like I've woken up a lot. I mean, obviously it's been 4 hours. But, I had, puffy eyes, and I was like, oh, God, I'm going to look like a sleepy motherfucker at the beginning of this. But, thanks for watching. Hey.